Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
But is the whiteness of a portion, but not a portion of whiteness. That means even if I take a part and separate it from a whole, then if the whole is participating in the form, the part is participating in the form equally as much as the whole, even though it's just a part of the whole. It's not a part of the form. It's just as much participating in it. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Okay.
Does that apply to water?
It can if you're talking about the form of water.
No, but I mean, let's say water is wet. Is one molecule of water wet?
Okay, so we're talking about it specifically from the metaphysics of the forms, right? So if you believe that, so do you believe in the premise of water is wet?
Do I believe in the premise of water? Is that the question?
Of water is wet. What you said.
Oh, yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so if you said, this piece of paper is wet, right? It's participating in the form of wetness, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think it definitely has the quality of wetness.
Yeah, so it participates in the form of wetness, right?
Well, I would say that the quality of wetness is a consequence of the form of water, right?
Sure, whatever you want to call it. Then, okay. In that case, you could say it participates in the form of water, right? So, I guess what you're asking is, if I take water, does it participate in the form of water, right?
I'm saying if you take an individual molecule of water, does it participate in the form of water as a whole?
Yeah. Well, it participates in the form of water as much as the whole, because the molecule.
But the whole makes things wet because there are more than one molecule, from what I can tell. Like, is it just?
But are we qualifying the form of water as something that has the ability to make something wet, or are we qualifying it by something else?
I think like when we have the individual molecule of water, we qualify it by the chemical formula. But when we say like something is wet, we mean that we have more like enough of the molecules to have like created a sort of like a coating of water.
That seems like it's coming from a much more physical standpoint than metaphysical.
Yeah, I would say that.
No, but he's talking about the forms. The forms are the metaphysical thing. They're supposed to apply to the physical objects. His example was of paper. If paper is wet, then there is not just one molecule of water on it, probably.
Well, this is my argument. My argument is if we have a piece of paper, right, and the paper is white, right, it participates in the form of whiteness, right? If I cut off a piece of that paper, now I have a portion of the whole of the piece of paper, right? But that portion is just as white as the whole, meaning that that part participates in the form just as much as the whole. It's a portion of the whole.
No, look, like I
think you might have misunderstood what I was initially saying.
No, look, I agree with you in this specific case, but what I'm asking is that true when the quality is because of the aggregate of the individual unit?
I think that in that case, we would be applying the quality onto the wrong form. We might be classifying the wrong form here, because I don't think that Plato or Plotinus spoke about anything molecular regarding water. And I'm just using the examples that they give in the Enneads.
So you're proposing Platonic realism, is that correct?
Not really. I'm just trying to debate on what the metaphysics of the forms truly are.
Yeah, but like if your approach is of a Platonic origin, then it sounds like Platonic realism.
I was
like, are the forms real?
I was questioning popular interpretations of the Platonic forms.
I guess my question though is, in your opinion, are the forms real?
In my opinion, the idea of the forms is just one form, a dynamic force field of potentiality. I do believe in that.
So you're saying that the forms, as in like that idea refers to a phenomenon, the form, which is real. Is that right?
In my monistic belief, yes.
And so the
But
form would be the form of forms. Is that correct?
the form of the one.
Well, yes, but the one is what, the form of unity? Is that what you mean?
I'm more saying that any kind of classification or label that can actualize is the result of one initial homogeneous substance. For example, if we
But when
look
you
at
say the one, that's not very descriptive, right?
oh yeah, I'm referring to the one as referenced directly by Plato in his works. I'm sorry,
Yeah, but
I'm
like
just
you
I'm
mean like
talking
an existential
specifically.
substrate.
Um, I'm talking about a hypostasis, not a sub. But uh,
A
I'm
hypostasis.
yeah, I'm
What does
trying
that
to
mean? Sorry.
um. It's not necessarily a substrate of reality, but you could call it the whatever you would consider atomic particles to be from the
Dude, it
perspective of
totally
the Big Bang theory.
is. It is an existential substrate. An underlying reality or substance. That's an existential substrate.
I wouldn't even call it underlying. I would call it kind of more of a
No, but that's what the definition. Like I just looked up the word you used. That's in the definition.
hypostasis.
Yeah, you mean hypostasis?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. First
Yeah.
of all, that's hypostasis.
I
Like that
apologize.
word is.
We pronounce
Yeah.
these
And
things
second of
differently.
all, like the second definition it gives, the philosophical definition says an underlying reality or substance, as opposed to attributes or to that which lacks substance. But I'm
Which
saying
article
that
are you pulling this from?
this is just the Google definition of it.
Oh, I apologize. I guess we're working very contextually over here as
I
these
mean,
things
where
go.
did you get your definition? Sorry.
Hello?
Where did you get your definition? Sorry.
Kevin J. Corrigan. I can link
Like,
you to his article happily.
look, I mean, I've looked it up in a couple of different dictionaries at this point, and it's definitely still like an essential or underlying component.
Yeah, no,
But where,
I would consider
but
that,
where the component is
I
like,
I should clarify in that my studies distinguish between substrate and hypostases significantly.
what do you think the distinction is?
Well, in Neoplatonism specifically, there are considered to be three hypostases: the soul, the intellect, and the one. These are considered to be, as you said,
Okay.
these three underlying components. Substrates are then classified later as different components that are compiled within the hypostases.
I
And
mean, so like you can say that there are multiple substrates insofar as there are multiple levels, but the like most primary substance of which everything is made, the one, that is technically speaking a substrate.
I'm saying think about it like a rectangle and a square.
Mhm.
The three hypostases are the three bigs that Plotinus uses throughout his Aeneids.
Yeah, but I'm just
Substrates that he classifies later, such as individualized souls, or the world soul, or the soul of the all, fall within the category of the hypostases as smaller categories within. They're like subgenres. You know what I mean?
look, I know what you're saying, but I think like it looks to me like like there should only be, from what I can tell, one hypostasis, and then like you saying it as a plural, but it seems like there should only be one because what it says is an underlying reality or substance, right? Like one. Whereas when we look at substrate, it says an underlying substance or layer, right? But underlying can be underlying any particular level, right?
Yeah, but we
Whereas
have to consider the context of which the Google definition is coming from. Plotinus specifically says that there are three hypostases: the soul, the
yeah, but
intellect,
that
and the
doesn't mean
one.
that it's correct, right? You must accept that.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. I'm purely talking about a very specific tradition, which is why
hmm
I'm continuing to
But
attempt
like,
to say that all of my conversation is talking specifically within the context of Neoplatonism, as
no,
Non
look,
was actually at this discussion started with Non asking me what I thought about my own metaphysical approach to the world. So I was giving him my information on Neoplatonic view of the form versus a Platonic view. I wasn't really arguing whether or not these things are authentic or which definition is correct. I'm really just trying to present a worldview.
Yes, but isn't it implicit in the proposition that you hold your worldview, that you think it's correct?
Absolutely, but I'm not trying to fit it into any specific framework of authority.
But like I'm just like
I'm purely trying to present it as a scholar, not as a practitioner.
Yeah.
I understand that my bias leaks in.
I'm looking at like
that. Therefore, I have to contextualize the conversation, and I do have to let. I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to use the words. I'm just trying to use the words you've used, right? So like when I look up in the dictionary these words you've used that I don't know, such as hypostasis, which is what the individual word is, the singular.
Yes, sir.
Right? Maybe it is hypostases if it's in plural, but I'm talking about the singular.
I just pronounce it based off how my professor pronounces it. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Well, look, if it's in plural, it would make sense for it to be hypostases. Anyway, like it says an underlying reality or substance, right? But the fact that it says reality or substance would suggest to me that it is the underlying substance.
Oh, well, the three hypostases in the Neoplatonic tradition are also encompassed within each other. For example, the intellect is born out of the one, and the soul is born out of the intellect.
So then we are saying there is just one hypostasis, which is the one, and that the others are consequential.
He still classifies the other two as hypostases. So as much as I totally see what you're saying and I want to agree with it, he like verbally disagrees with that. Just because he's probably just pompous about his classification. You know?
Yeah, but like the question is about like whether or not the categorization is sufficient, right? So like if we're like using two words. No, but that is the question when you're trying to communicate ideas, right? You're using words.
That's not
and insofar as like, no, but like you are communicating, right?
But if I ignore his classification, right, then I'm presuming that I have an understanding of his beyond himself.
No, you're not. What you're doing is you're presuming that you're like making the conclusion you have to make based on what the words mean, as far as you can tell.
I'm not sure about that because the words are also ultimately translations, and the Enneads are incredibly contradictory.
No, but what I'm saying is that
it's almost like the Enneads are more like a diary because he constantly changes his minds on his metaphysics as he goes down and throughout.
Yeah, but look, the point that I'm making is just that like you're like putting it across in a specific way, which is that you're saying that there are three of this thing, and then like further
that's what he says. Yes. That's what he says.
Yes, but what I'm saying is like when I'm looking at the word, that doesn't seem appropriate.
Well, what I have to explain to you is that the word doesn't refer to a Neoplatonic context when you're reading it on Google because the word has probably been used in a billion other works. And
I'm reading the philosophical definition, right? And then like on the right, I'm reading
itself spans such a massive breadth.
Yes, but look, on the right, I'll read to you what it says. It says, hypostasis is the underlying state or underlying substance and is the fundamental reality that supports all else.
Yes.
In Neoplatonism, the hypostasis of the soul, the intellect, and the one was addressed by Plotinus or whatever.
That's right.
In Christian theology, a hypostasis is one of the three hypostases of the Trinity. So it seems like in Christian theology, the word is used in a plurality, but before that, it doesn't. Like it says hypostasis as an individual when it talks about Platonis's work.
If you check the main, you will see I just linked a JSTOR article on the three hypostases of Platonism by J.N. Findlay, 1975, that does claim that the Platonic hypostases existed as far as 500 BC.
I don't really think that that's what I'm talking about, though.
You said that the idea of three hypostases was not brought up until a Christian theology.
No. What I said was that. Look, what I said. I mean, what you've done is you've linked me to an article which proposes that. Like, I would have to read quite a bit of it to tell you whether or not it actually does show that, right?
It seems like it's a lot more cited and researched and displayable than the Google philosophy definition.
Yes, but
which doesn't really have any citations whatsoever.
Listen though, like when one person writes a book on something, they can basically draw the conclusions that seem appropriate to them, and they can be wrong.
Don't you think they're a little more peer-reviewed than the Wikipedia definition you read to me? Google philosophy
yes, but the point that I'm making.
In which case, if you are giving such authority to the definitions you've pulled up,
but look, what I'm saying is,
don't you think that those definitions have less authority?
What does the peer review do?
Don't you think you should shift to the definition
Wait, just for a sec. What does the peer review do in this situation?
It allows us to see that other people who are accredited have said this is something worth reading and considering as an appropriate definition.
That doesn't mean that they think that it is appropriate. They said that it's worth considering.
Now, there is an absence of that in the Wikipedia and Google definition. And because you have constantly gone back, excuse me 1 second, if you've constantly gone back to those definitions over and over and shown me those as the basis for talking about the hypostases, then if I'm showing you something that has a lot more review behind it, which you and I have both agreed to already, then how can you not now see that my claim of the three hypostases is supported by something that we've both agreed to hold more authority than the definitions you vouched for?
No, I don't actually technically agree. You've given me like someone's opinion, and just because it's been peer reviewed doesn't mean that the peers agree with the use. It means that they think it's interesting. Like, there's no evidence that the peers who reviewed it all thought it was spot on.
Of course, but they published.
So I don't understand. So, like,
you don't publish.
Regardless, what is your like issue with the ideas presenting in general, though?
Because hypostasis is one word that means an underlying reality, and you can only have one of those.
Okay, I said three hypostases. You've given no
I know
proof
what you said.
You've given no proof that you can only have one of those. I've shown you
an underlying reality. How can you have three underlying realities?
Definition, my friend.
No, it's a philosophy definition.
On Google's first result. There's no citation.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. There's no citation. Pretty sure Google is the most sophisticated search engine we've ever made.
Can you give me the citation? I think JSTOR is a little more sophisticated.
I mean, that's a relatively subjective analysis, right? So, like, one of the things that it says is that that in theological use, right, it meant sediment, and then later it meant something different, all right? And, like, the fact that the fact that I haven't read what this dude has said means that you're welcome to make all the claims about his work that you like, and I'm not really capable of telling you that they're not true. But what I'm telling you is,
which is why I'm wondering why.
But listen, because I'm telling you that when a word has a definition, right? When a word, first of all, is a singular, and the definition of the singular includes the word's underlying reality, like, deductively, there cannot be more than one of those. And so
that speaks from a framework that speaks specifically to English for a phrase that was initially created in Greek. You couldn't possibly put that lens on unless you read the work in its initial
actually, like,
You've
I can
taken
see
away
the
its denotation and connotation.
Dude,
when we can keep in mind that definitions are human-made, dynamic, and constantly changing, we know that they can easily be restrictive as they translate. So if you read this go on, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Look, like, I can see the etymology right here, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't indicate that in any sense it should be plural. It doesn't indicate that.
I'm sorry. Do you know Greek philology or grammar?
Well, yes, I've read ancient Greek philosophy. So I know a little of the Greek philology, not all of it.
It would be very hard for you to say that this word exists in declensions outside of the singular tense. It's not really fair to say that this is a singular phrase when it's formed from two different phrases in Greek and can be declined as a plural.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. You said it's not fair to say that it's singular because it's formed from two different phrases. Is that right?
Because it can be declined outside of the singular in Greek and exists as a declined plural in the nominative and accusative throughout the Ennead.
Just because people use something as a plural doesn't necessarily mean
Not
it
just
should be
people
used as a
using
plural.
something. It's a source that's definitely highly more cited than Google definition of hypotheses, which has literally no documentation that you have been able to provide to me. And I'm sorry, this conversation just is difficult to go on with if you can't really provide citations.
If I can't, to other dictionaries apart from Google, I definitely can do that, man.
No, not to other dictionaries apart from Google.
I mean, why not? Why aren't dictionaries relevant? Are you saying that?
Okay, why? Okay, what if we sidestep this, right? What if we sidestep this, and
I'd love
we conclude that perhaps the way it is currently in use in English does not match the English definition. But what is the? Can you describe the definition you are referring to, so as to clarify what you mean by what you say?
Who are you asking?
You. Because then, like, even if it doesn't match the exact.
What I'm trying to say is that there are a plethora of definitions that exist, and utilizing one that covers a broad general context outside of the specifically Neoplatonic context is going
that's
to
what I'm trying to like sort of sidestep.
Uninformative when talking about it from the Neoplatonic context. So when we do that, I'll say this. When I see three hypotheses, I see it completely possible to have three underlying substances because they are existing within each other in microcosm.
Yeah. So to clarify, what you mean by hypostasis is underlying substance, because then we can just sidestep the word in general and just go with the name.
I just don't understand why he would object to substrate then, because that's exactly what substrate means.
What I was trying to say is, from the beginning, all I was trying to say is, substrate is a word when translated in the Enneads, when people typically translate Plotinus into English, hypostases and substrate are referred to as two different terms. So they have different connotations. Just for the functional framework of his metaphysics, they have two different connotations.
I'm asking, what is the functional distinction between the two, in your opinion?
Size and divine authority in his eyes.
What?
I would think so. Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more to me?
Yeah. I think that he believes that these substrates are born out of spontaneous inclination power, actualized events that occur, or scatterings of patterns.
So you're saying like a substrate is something that emerges, is that right?
It's what I believe he is saying.
So, yeah, but it's your view as well, right?
I see it as a good guide point to my view. I was never really trying to as this is my view. I was really just trying to talk about it as this is what I've read about this guy and what he's saying.
Okay.
It informs my view, absolutely.
So then what would you say is the distinction between this and your view?
I'm a lot more skeptical about the specifics. I don't know if there's exactly three substrates. I don't know if they're necessarily the one intellect and soul. I don't know how much the forms apply. Like I'm really unsure, man. I really couldn't tell you what the true nature of reality is because I'm just a mortal, you know. At the end of the day, my religious belief extends to the base conclusion that there is a homogeneous substance that composes the entirety of existence.
Okay, that's fair.
That's it.
Why do you call that a religious belief?
And I apologize for getting really irrational with you. And I'm really sorry.
No, that's all good, man. I can be quite disagreeable.
It's okay.
Especially when it comes to definitions. He has a habit of
It's okay. I'd love to talk to you about, the malleability of definition later. But right now, I just want to apologize. I got a little.
No, you're good, man. I want to apologize as well. I was probably a bit too aggressive.
Man, don't worry about it. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more in the days to come.
So, why would you classify that belief as religious?
So I just want to clarify with my background a little bit. I study religion and philosophy at Emory University in Atlanta. I'm in my senior year here. One thing I've learned in the academic.
Sorry, you're breaking up a bit, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I heard like one thing I've learned, but then nothing else.
Oh, sorry. One thing I've learned in the context of the academic study of religion is it's really hard to define something like religion because everyone tends to have their own definition of something like that, similar to words like culture. So by that, like you can see anything from Karl Marx's Opiate of the Masses to the Google definition, right? All these definitions have different functions and different agendas because all of them are, at least in my opinion, man-made. So when I say religious experience, I'm really, really talking about an individualized definition of religion. So for me, a religious experience is anything that's difficult to phenomenologically translate and transfer. So let's say I perform an experiment using materials that has a result that is observable by other people and therefore replicable by other people, right? To me, if that's the entirety of it, it's not necessarily religious. If there is a factor or there are factors in that experiment that are not viewable by other people outside of the experiencer or experiencers, right? If it's something phenomenological, something that, let's say, an old woman sits down and says she claims she has tea with Jesus every Sunday, right? Let's say she claims that, and we can't see it, and to us, she's crazy. But in her eyes, the experience is something that a phenomenologist would probably classify as religious because it's an experience that that if we take her words to be believable, is something that she is experiencing for one reason or another, be it mental illness or true spirituality, that we cannot observe in terms of our own replication of that experience without having some sort of belief system.
We have indirect access. Would you say we have indirect access through the description?
Absolutely. So I believe in phenomenological magnetism. So I don't want to sound like a dick. I'll say I believe in the idea that we create the difference between water and holy water. I believe that when you go to a temple, even if you're not religious, you may feel some kind of difference in the atmosphere there outside as compared to other areas. I believe in the triggering of these kind of religious invocations and inclinations.
Could we call them mystical, not religious?
Yes, absolutely. I would absolutely 100% agree because religious often has a stigma that is very Abrahamic and neglects a lot of the mystical traditions that are absolutely, honestly, a more fitting term in my eyes.
Well, I am more comfortable with the term mystical than religious.
All right. Personally, I just have been using it because it's a term that occurs in religious studies because, unfortunately, the academic world is too pompous to accept the term mystical studies. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Fair enough. So would you be when you say when we're talking about a metaphysical idea where we say that there is some metaphysical form, like you were saying before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, and then we'll say the mystical traditions have intuitions of this. Would you agree with that?
Of this one form?
Yeah.
Yeah, this abstract metaphysical
to me,
form.
Yeah, to me, I see this concept of the one across different mystical traditions in Sufi Islam, Hasidic Judaism, in many forms of Buddhism, Hinduism, Vedic traditions, and pre-Socratic philosophy like
of course.
Anaximander. Yes, absolutely. That's definitely what I'm talking about.
The question I want to pose to you is it possible that that one can be specified, right? That form that the intuitions are about can be specified to the degree where religious isn't
Wait, there's no
appropriate.
ambiguity?
Is
because there's no
appropriate or isn't
ambiguity.
appropriate?
Isn't appropriate.
I think that I'm biased in me not seeing it that way, but I think that you could definitely talk to someone who presents the Big Bang Theory as monistic, as an example of the one actualizing in different forms. But
What if there's a more graceful explanation than that?
a more graceful explanation than that? Than like something like the Big Bang, is that what you mean?
Well, something more graceful than something like the Big Bang being the one actualizing itself again and again.
Like Nietzsche's eternal return, for example, is a good idea. Of
No, not like a loop. More like let's say the eternal existence of everything that's possible.
Like some grand atemporal structure.
Oh, you're saying, is there a version of that I
No,
see
I'm saying like, is it
religious?
possible? Yeah, is it possible that like the one, that thing that
Yeah.
we're talking about, the form of forms or whatever, is it possible that that is just like a naturalistic atemporal structure?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, but see, from the way I'm looking at this, its presence in human life is characterized by its transcendence of the human lens and therefore its mystical inclinations. Therefore, I am inclined to categorize it as divine. You know what I mean?
Do you think that it's possible that a better categorization is transcendent?
I think transcendent is fitting. I prefer divine because
Of course.
I feel
But
this intimacy. I feel this like first person intimacy.
No, but the
in
question
my,
I'm asking is like, is it possible that transcendent is a better word? And if it was, would you prefer to use the better word if you could come to your own conclusion on the matter?
It is absolutely possible that transcendent is a better word. I couldn't say
If you decided that were true, would you
Uh-huh.
want to change your language?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
Of course.
Chris and I have an idea for you, bro.
Yeah. So here's the real version of what I briefly mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Wait, 1 second. I was
If
just
you're
wondering.
interested.
So in sync, why did you ask me that? I'm just wondering.
Oh, because like that's a like critical part of like the proper adjustment of your model. You know, like it's
Oh, absolutely.
Chris and I have an idea about the thing we're talking about, and like
Oh,
it's
right.
important.
So
Like if
you
we're
came
going to
up-
tell you about it, it's interesting to
Yeah.
know that you have agreed already to change your terms if you are convinced.
If you, yeah,
Absolutely.
not a lot of people
yes.
will.
I think
most people are resistant.
I think that all knowledge we have is functional knowledge.
Mhm.
So if I encounter a lens for this thing that I consider to be a truth already,
Mhm.
I like
that
the
is
analogy
more
of the lens.
fitting.
That's one
If
Yeah,
I
I like
find
the
it to be,
lens one.
that's one I
thank
use
you
quite a
guys.
bit.
Yeah, it's great. If I find your lens for a truth we've already both seemingly agreed on to be more fitting in its specifics, because I am unconvinced by any specific metaphysical framework for this, then I would have to say I'm happy to use yours.
So
Let's hear
I'd
it.
love to hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear Chris give it a go first because I'm usually the one who does. So
Give me 1 second.
Again, I'm sorry about the whole toxicity earlier.
nah, dude, don't even apologize. You're being very nice.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we have to be humble. Humility is the crux of the wisdom
Oh,
tradition.
I definitely agree. Did you hear that death spell, Amiga?
Shots fired.
You want to get back into this, mate?
Huh?
You want to go back into this?
Uh-huh.
Humility would only be a virtue on a moral theory.
I don't agree with that. Humility is an
I
intellectual
disagree.
virtue.
Yeah,
Justify that.
humility allows you to accept the perspective from
Mistakes
which
that
you're
you're
looking
making.
at the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always
You're more
applicable.
open to the idea.
The knower
Yeah.
is the forever unknowing. You know, you're always in the process of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And for
And
always
that's
listening,
That's
yeah.
a very wise thing to say.
Thanks, man. I mean, you could always hit him with the cliche, I know nothing. The basis
doubt,
of our
dude.
conversation.
It's funny because I definitely think that Socrates was wrong to say that. It's not quite right, you know? Like, that's not the correct phrasing.
Yeah, it's just
It does
again.
It's like,
encapsulate the idea to an extent.
but he should be saying, like, I'm pretty sure I know nothing.
It's
Yeah.
poetic reductionism. It's poetic
Claiming to know
reductionism.
nothing is not the same as humility. Simple as that.
Yeah,
Well, it is like
absolutely.
the foundation for humility is like acknowledging your epistemological limitations as a subjective
Yeah.
being.
Yeah,
but that's
and
not
not
the
even
same as denying
I
any
wouldn't
objective
necessarily
knowledge.
say limitation so much as in the moment your
'Cause that just
position
makes
as
epistemology
the
objective.
absorber of the information rather than the bestower. Like
Mhm.
we are forever the absorber.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So, Chris, are you ready?
Oh, I don't really know where to begin.
Come on, man.
Like we literally
Sorry
just
for
had, like, a
ranting
huge
so
discussion.
much.
No, you're good, dude.
So things exist, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay, I'll start it off, but you're gonna take the reasoning, alright? God,
Okay.
jeez. Okay, so in the beginning, like when we're talking about like things existing or things not existing, either
Yeah.
they exist or they don't. Do we agree?
So kind of. I'm sorry.
I mean, law of
Like,
excluded
there
middle.
is potential that it's a false dichotomy, but it seems likely that it's true based on the law of
Law
excluded
of
middle.
excluded middle, yeah.
Yeah, I just
Okay, so like there's either something or there's nothing. There's no other option.
it's just that like
Hey, don't be so
I
arrogant, man.
I would have to say
they
like
could be both. They could be something and
there's
nothing.
either
like, in
something or
different
there's
places.
nothing in time. Right.
No. Outside of time, in an ultimate sense, there is either something or there is nothing. Either something exists or nothing does.
No need to be
Yeah, but
arrogant.
here's my question. Is your definition of nothing existing a space? Like is there
No,
any
no.
is there
No.
So
The
we're
absence of
we're
everything.
limited by we're limited by only the ability to use the idea of nothing, but we are trying to sort of representatively use it as if it was nothing.
But when you talk
Like,
about
I
it, you
just-
make it into something.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like we can try and like describe a negative space using all things, like the lack of all things, and using all of the things we can sort of create this negative space
Right.
to abstractly
see,
describe
when you do
using
that,
the abstract concept of negative space. Like it's
When you talk about
it's always going to be
nothing, though,
something when you discuss
yeah,
it.
but when you talk about nothing, you actually turn it into its opposite.
I think
therefore
that-
unifying something and nothing that's actually become identical.
So here's my only issue with the law of excluded middle.
Okay.
We speak on the idea of a dichotomy like something and nothing through the limits of our communicative ability of language and the frameworks we impress onto the world around us. In my opinion, of course. And
I think that's
as a
pretty fair.
result, we are able to create dichotomies that may not necessarily hold in
I think, yeah,
the form
I
outside
think
of
you're right.
its linguists.
Because
So like the liar's
Dharma,
paradox.
So have a look at
I
nothing.
mean,
and
look,
something.
I'm not gonna
See-
say
see
that's
how
not. Look, I'm not gonna say that can't be true. What I'm gonna say is, let's just try for now, and like we'll see how we do, right? So
Absolutely.
the lies,
No.
the lies.
I just wanted to
Absolutely.
point out something though. When you
There's
do
no reason. there's no reason for me.
But when
sorry.
you talk about nothing as
In
something,
sync. There's no reason for me to not hear this theory out just because I have that viewpoint. But I just wanted to let you know, I do already hold that viewpoint as a large result because of my own studies. You know.
Dharma,
But
can I
please
At least you're
continue.
willing to explore it. Yeah.
I can put myself in that framework 100%.
Cool.
Right. But you got to point out
So-
there's a contradiction here before you can even make this thought experiment work, though. Because when you say we have nothing or something, but every time we talk about nothing, we define it.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that
Again. Yeah.
It's a fundamental paradox. The law of excluded middle.
The idea of nothing is paradoxical. Yes.
Yeah, but we're Death Spell.
Like
Death
we're
Spell,
fucking getting there.
we're
You can't
going
say
to
nothing.
functionally continue with the language as if this is a logically coherent logos.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah,
point out
when-
it's not
when we-
necessarily logically coherent because saying nothing or something.
Thank you.
But if they're actually
Yeah, but they're saying
if they
P
actually
or not
define
P.
themselves- but if they
They're saying
define
P or
themselves-
not P.
Yeah. But if they defined off each other, then it becomes nothing and something. They're actually unified.
Okay, but you understand that, like, when they're saying nothing or something, they're just using placeholder words to describe the basic formal logical language of P or not
We are
P.
forced to use. Yeah, we are forced to use the idea of nothing because
yeah, but
you
I'm just
cannot
pointing
discuss
out
nothing
that
itself.
that makes nothing into something. So it's conceptually.
No, it's the idea of nothing. It's explicitly different.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but anytime you talk about nothing, it's only ever given as an idea.
Yeah.
Yes, but as
we're
long as
using
we
that idea
explicitly
representatively.
identify. Yep, as long as we explicitly identify that it is an idea, there's no problem with that.
Right, but then that makes nothing into something, aka an idea.
Dude,
No,
we're not
it
saying
does not.
nothing, we're saying the idea of nothing. And just seriously, why don't you just be quiet for a bit?
Well, just why not just turning it into something?
Death Spell,
fucking
we've already established what you're saying, and we've already moved past it. Is what you're trying to say?
We agree that the idea of nothing is paradoxical.
Right. I know you're saying that, but I'm just saying you can't say excluded middle and stuff if you agree it's paradoxical. That's just there's a
What?
But the excluded middle is not between something and nothing. It's between something
It
and nothing.
completely depends on how the classical logic, because it's completely up to the practitioner of logic whether or not the law of excluded middle is paradoxical or not.
Yeah, or maybe
There
just
are
the law of
axioms that we get to follow based off our decision. So right now we're extending those axioms to include that yes, there's either something or nothing for the sake of this conversation, so we can follow this metaphysical
just
framework.
so that way we can
Alright,
disregard
go ahead.
this entire nothing of issue.
I
Why
just
don't we
think it's
just
very
for
important.
now and
That's
refer
what
to
I'm
it as
doing.
something or not something?
Yeah,
So do you
whatever.
have
Anyway,
conceptual something or not something?
so there's either something or not something.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so not something, right? What's that?
To me,
Well, yeah, like do an analysis for me.
so I present a variety of.
Just give me your best analysis. The one you would go with if you had to choose.
The infinite possibility for continually unfold. That's a quote.
The
The
Could you
space.
explain?
So, in the space, so like, let's say you're holding up your fingers. Like you're holding up two fingers, right? Like a peace sign, right?
Mhm.
And like, let's just say for the purpose of this thought experiment, you're in the vacuum of space. There's truly nothing in between your two fingers, right? No air, nothing, right? Or not something, right?
Mhm.
That in the area that is not being taken up by space, anything can fill that space. That is potential.
Okay, well, I actually don't accept that. Could you
Okay, that's
explain how
my
you get to
view.
that conclusion?
I'm sorry?
Could you explain how you get to that
Understood.
conclusion?
Oh, sure. It's definitely a very again, a very monistic view, but it comes from this idea that
I have a monistic view of logic, man.
Okay, I mean, it comes. Let me clarify. It comes from a monistic view that I'll be wielding, because there's so many different monistic views, right? Of course. I'd say it's the idea that the space that has not yet been taken up will be or could be by anything.
I've heard that one before, but
be then something.
yeah, because like let me put it to you this way, right? Like insofar as there is a way for things to come about, right?
Mhm.
There are mechanics. There's not nothing. There's not space. There are mechanics. And the space is a consequence of the mechanics.
That's so. Can I read this? Can I read this quote to you? Really
For sure,
quick?
man.
Thanks. So I won't read it just yet, just because I just want to preface it by saying this is Plotinus talking about things being ensouled. So he claims that like all things are ensouled, like they're covered in soul, right? That's what he's saying. So just this part really fits to me. And it really is correct that not all of soul belongs to anything, since of course it is an essence, but there is a soul which absolutely does not belong to anything. And all those which do belong to anything become souls of things occasionally and incidentally. So it seems like almost like a cop-out on his end, but it seems like he's saying if something doesn't exist, like if a unicorn doesn't exist, right? If there is not something, that is just the space for something to, on occasion or incident, appear. It is the potential for action. It's like the field of possibility, you know?
So what here's another idea. Why don't we extend that a little bit? Like, what if all things which could potentially exist do exist, just for argument's sake?
Yeah, maybe just not here.
Yeah. But in
Then
general, all things which could exist do exist.
Then there would be nothing that does not exist, right?
Well,
Yeah, exactly. Anything
nothing.
which is
There
a
would
thing
be nothing logically
exists.
possible that wouldn't exist. Yes.
Yeah, and
But
like
at
if
the
it's
same-
incoherent, then it couldn't exist. But
Well, it could exist in your head.
So
yeah,
so
but,
here's
like,
the
there has to
question.
be some-
Here's the question. If it exists in your head, can it exist in the world?
So there's a
Is there a
difference between like something being non-existent and imaginary.
Yeah.
Like if something's imaginary, like a unicorn, it's not correct to say that it doesn't exist. It's correct to say that it's not existent in any more, like in
in our
any.
physical
Yeah,
plane.
yeah. Like
I
it's not
would definitely
representative of
agree
the
with
world
that.
outside your head.
But there is definitely some kind of structure that supports the thought process, and that in that structure there must be the idea.
The ability to conceive it in the first place is
Yeah, the representation
Yeah,
of
there has
it
to be-
exists.
is a marker of its existence in some form. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
in the
some
form
underlying
of a
structure
concept.
too.
I'm totally there with you. The only thing I'd say is I would extend that to add some of that mystical connotation to it, some of that religious connotation to it, by saying that that's all true, but we have limited information as to whether or not it could exist materially as well.
Yes, it
How do you
depends
mean?
on you. So you would need to know if it can be consistent with the other things that exist.
Yeah, but
And if you don't have that information, you cannot know for sure.
so what I'm trying to say here is I strongly believe that I strongly believe that the things that like the metaphysics of the world are at once ordered, destined, chance, incidental, and occasional. I feel like there can be a structure that is still completely incomprehensible to human beings to the degree that it appears nearly incidental. You know what I mean? I believe in inclination, and desire, and spontaneity in actualization, rather than logically coherent, or even though I find logic to be an incredibly efficient functional tool.
So I'd love to know like what you think logic is exactly.
So let me ask you this: do you think logic was discovered or invented?
It was derived.
Okay. Can you
So
explain?
in a
that?
way discovered. In a way.
Yeah, I guess observed more than
Like-
anything.
Okay,
Not-
so
That
not
is, there isn't a
discovered
way of
exactly.
discovery there.
Oh, I don't
To
know.
me- to me, logic is one incredibly beautiful and effective framework that is a measurement which allows us to, like, it's a lens that allows us to measure, calculate, and determine aspects of reality functionally in order for us to progress and make sense of it. Again,
Okay, how
functionally.
about I throw you a bifocal lens on that one?
Okay.
Right? So subjective logic and objective logic are different. Right? Subjective logic is the system we use to model the consistencies of the natural world, and the system we use to update that model. Right?
hmm
Objective logic is the structure that actually exists in the objective world that we are modeling with our subjective system.
So I would have to argue that I'm so against like the idea of an absolute truth that is calculable by humans.
No, it's not
So-
calculable by us. Epistemologically, we cannot access it. But
Okay, so you're saying
structure
there
of
is
reality
something.
yeah, the structure of reality is a certain way, and that structure is objective logic, and all of our subjective logical models are designed to model that structure, because modeling it correctly allows us to survive and allows us to like manifest scientific potency in the form of technology.
So I would
Like-
say
like-
that our modelings allow us to survive, allow us to progress scientifically, absolutely, that they allow for a form of progress. I feel that it's kind of like painting on a canvas, though. Personally, I feel like it's definitely derived from our observations and perceptions, but that it's one way to approach the world. I think that the idea of objectivity is an achievement of subjectivity, as Hegel has said before. I think that it's really cool that he thinks that subjectivity is an achievement of knowledge, and the only patterns of knowledge we can achieve are self-knowledge. So I don't want to just jump into another conversation altogether here, but to me, like, we can learn about our own interaction and place and ability to navigate through the world, but we cannot learn much more than that, and we learn it through others and through interaction and through observation and experimentation. But objectivity is achieved by our ability to translate and share that information.
Nope.
Perception.
Nope.
No?
So what you're talking about is intersubjectivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, objectivity is what is, as it is, independently of subjective conception, perception, or postulation. It is the world as it exists on its own.
I think that the world as it exists on its own isn't something that we are necessarily like. I think that we capture it in a way through.
No, but I'm not saying that we're
logic.
Yeah, I'm
but-
not saying we're like representing it properly. What I'm saying is we know that there is such a thing, and it's not the same as intersubjectivity.
Oh, okay. So,
Like the world is more true than our intersubjective opinion of it.
I just
Also,
I
just
think
to
that-
clarify,
Mhm.
our entire like position is like abductive, so not
Is
you
what?
can't like conclusively prove it.
It's
Like it's based
abductive.
on abductive reasoning.
That's okay. That's okay. I think it's important to have that kind of conversation. But I'm basically saying I don't know if there is an objective reality. I have no idea.
How? Like, by definition of objective, if the subjective thing exists at all and there's nothing objective to it, it's by definition objective, is it not?
Well, by definition of subject and object, I don't want to get like super like I just want to say like I promise I'm not trying to be like douchey sounding at all.
Yeah.
But
it's all good.
So you know how in active voice, you have the subject of a word and
Could
the
you
object
repeat
of a
that?
word. You know how in English, right? You have active voice and passive voice, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So you know how active voice would be like the boy threw the ball, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So the boy would be the subject and the ball is the object, right?
Mhm.
Let's say that the passive voice is the ball was thrown by the boy. Now the ball is the subject and the boy is the object, right?
Yep.
So the difference between active and passive voice, where you still have where the subject and object are switching, is that the boy remains the agent and the
Whoa.
ball remains the patient.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
That seems like a bit of a supposition. What do you mean by agent?
It's a linguistic classification. So
No,
it's
I
the
understand that.
uh-huh.
But like you're saying,
So-
like
The
the boy has agency in both situations, right?
The boy is the instrument of the action, and the ball
No,
is the thing that the action is being done to.
I don't
So the
agree.
ball
Both
is-
are the thing that the action is being done to. Both of them are subject to their deterministic mechanics.
Can you explain?
Yeah, so like when the boy throws the ball, it
Mhm.
is like through the mechanics of his body that action comes about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in the same way as when the boy throws the ball, right, there is like a transfer of energy and the ball starts to move, right? When the boy moves, it is because all his parts must move according to the rules.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
action cannot be divorced from the mechanics.
And so like there's no
Uh-huh.
specific agent, it's all just happening naturally.
I would agree with that philosophically, but I was just presenting a link so I could make an analogy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. You can't really separate the action from the mechanic. I think that's true. But in terms of us talking about like the subjective versus the objective, what I was really trying to say is that like conceptions of objectivity are created from human beings, and we are subjective beings, you know. So for me, it's hard to be sure of an objective.
You mean a
You know,
world
like-
external to your subjective, like,
Yeah,
experience?
I am absolutely and have throughout my life believed in an objective world, but
So
I have no certainties.
yeah, I think that's quite fair. But I think that like the point I was trying to get across was that if there's no environment objective to you, and your subjective experience is all that exists, then your subjective experience objectively exists.
By definition, yeah, that makes sense.
Like,
But
it's
I
impossible
feel,
for there to not be some objective thing. Like, you cannot have. The
but then
subjective
where is the distinction in your metaphysics?
Well, basically, we're saying that there just must be something objective for subjectivity to even be possible.
Just by the rules of the definition.
Yes, by definition, yeah.
So can you remind me how this came up? I'm sorry. Like in terms of your metaphysics.
I actually don't remember. Matt was saying something, and then I like chimed in halfway through.
Oh, I'm sorry. I agree with that. I agree. Like, I just, when you had asked me, like, do I believe in an objective world? All I was saying is,
You can't be certain. And I think that's quite fair.
I can't be certain if there is one outside of my subjective experience. But if we're going to classify my subjective experience as still including it, then categorically it's a question that has no answer except yes.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
You're
So I
supposed
guess
to be doing this crisp.
so I guess like if we're agreeing that there like by definition must be something like that is objective, whether that is your subjective experience or some environment objective to you, would you agree that to exist it must have some kind of structure?
Can you say that again? I just zoned out for a second.
So even if like what is objective is either like the world objective to you or perhaps even just your subjective experience, for something to exist, would you agree that it must have some kind of structure?
Now I need you to define what you mean by it having some.
Essentially that there's like for something to be able to exist, it must have some kind of like properties or like some kind of structure for you to even be trying to define it.
I have no
Even
idea.
if it's just a definition, even if it's just a definition or structure, like that, to be able to like make any claims about existence, you have to provide.
Are you
some
saying
kind
like
of
it has
structure,
to?
I think.
It has to. Are you saying like there has to be some kind of coherence to it?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Even if it's an incoherent construction, there is still a structure though, right?
So you're saying like there has to be something construct.
Yeah, there must be like something which exists, and like I think that a fitting name for like the most fundamental aspects of a thing would probably be structure. Unless you have a better
I
term.
just don't know what. I just can't think of anything that isn't structured. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
even
that's
concepts.
sort of what, yeah.
Even concepts
That's
of
what
the
I'm trying
absence
to
of
illustrate to an
structure.
extent.
Even the concepts of the absence of structure involve structure.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, what I'm trying to illustrate to an extent is that, like you, in order to make any claims, it's not possible to divorce them from structure. Like, structure is a requirement to make any claims.
Yeah, but
about anything.
again, like these claims are categorically true. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's sort of where I'm leading that to, is that like if you must have some kind of structure, like you must then sort of define how that structure functions in some way, whether that be like relative to other things or like some other aspect.
Okay.
And so like essentially what I'm saying is that like something exists. To exist, it must have some kind of structure. And like the most like straightforward one I can think of is that like the structure exists sort of relative to other structure. Like it leaves you without having to like strictly define it, but it still encapsulates the idea.
I'm lost there.
So would you agree that like structure exists?
I still don't have a clear enough definition. You know, is it composition of already existing?
I guess like
because if you say something exists and then you say structure exists, it's kind of recursive. You know.
Yeah. Like they're sort of defined relative to one another in the way I'm using them, I suppose. Like to exist, something must have structure, and to have structure, it must exist. Like it's sort of like a two-part thing that allows you to work with it a bit.
Yeah, but it's also like, is that coherent? Like, to exist, something must have structure. For something to have structure, it must exist. Like,
It seems pretty close. I'm not really sure what other positions you could like offer.
I don't see any difference between structure and existence. They're the same thing.
Yeah, but it's a way of discussing that. Like it's almost two words for the same thing.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like structure and existence are interchangeable by this logical definition.
Yeah. And
Like
what
A
I'm
equals B
essentially
and B
saying
is
that-
A.
Yeah, and like one other like way that you could sort of try and add some consistency to that is sort of like A exists relative to B, B exists relative to A. Like it's sort of a way to give some
Versus
consistency
saying
to
A is
the
B and B.
structure of existence.
Versus saying A is B and B is A.
Yeah. Because like otherwise everything like would be
Okay,
the
so
same thing.
you're not saying they're interchangeable. You're saying they're codependent terms.
Yes.
Okay. So existence and structure cannot occur without each other.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And like okay,
so but at the same time, structure has to be defined independently of existence for that to happen, for them to not be considered the same thing.
Yes, so I think that what I would consider distinct is that structure is one like half of, so they're not like quite interchangeable. You need sort of a second half that qualifies structure a bit, otherwise it's a bit meaningless. And so I think that the bit I'm using to qualify structure is that any structure that exists must exist relative to any other structure that exists. And then that sort of qualifies existence a little bit more than just saying it's
But
structure.
how can it qualify existence? Includes existence in its definition. Like I don't mean to be.
It's like it is.
I just am.
It is somewhat circular. Yeah, it is.
It is circular. So it's hard to wrap my head around as a result.
Yeah,
because it kind of is recursive.
Yeah. But at the same time,
I'm not sure it sounds like this.
Nonsensical.
It sounds like this. There is like existence, right? There's one premise. Of
like existence is true. We will assume truth is like
existence
can
equals true.
Existence is true.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Structure equals relative compositions of extant things.
Yes, exactly.
That can only be extant in the presence of multiple compositions.
Yes.
No?
So what the way I would sort of qualify that is like if like essentially anything which can exist relative to other structure without sort of being contradictory to it, or like they sort of can coexist,
So like what I'm hearing is like existence is true. But existence is true if existence is qualified by codependence of composite arrangements and patterns.
Yeah, I think that's a fair characterization.
So it sounds like you're saying like existence is true if there's an order to it.
I mean, wouldn't existence is true be an order to it?
Because like existence in itself is the identity.
The truth of existence alone is
the disorder is by definition ordered if it's what exists. Like that's how you would define order if it's all that exists.
I agree, and most philosophers that I have studied would agree that disorder is microcosmic in a macrocosmic order, categorically. Kind of like what you're saying about the subjectivity.
Yeah.
Am I on the right page here?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I just don't want to get lost.
What have I already explained? Man, I'm so tired. So
Me too. Good, this is fun. You guys are great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
In my defense, I have been awake for 10 p.m. I've been awake for 36 hours.
It's 7 a.m. where I am. I've been up all. I've been looking for go into a chat and talk about my research and share, different lectures that I've recorded or made. And I didn't get to do that tonight, but I got to share some work and I got to have some discussion. I got to have the ups and downs of a dialectic with you guys. It was great. It's been great.
No, are you leaving us?
I'm here for now.
For how
Hey,
long?
Dan, can I ask a question?
Like stalling it.
Can't you wait with your questions until the end?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. If you're not finished, I won't ask. It's all right.
Thank you. But yeah, I'm stalling it. I've forgotten what I've already said. And like,
Oh God! Right, so I think what you put up to was that structure is an interdependent element of existence.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And so, like what you said about existence at the start of the proposition was existence is true. But that's not quite actually what we are saying. Its existence is necessarily true.
yeah, because non-existence in an
It's
attempt to
false.
like discuss it is just nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, say that last part again about non-existence. I missed it.
Well, like a thing that's not existing, at least from our reference frame, does not seem to make sense.
From your reference frame, it seems like things not existing can only occur, like that concept can only occur relative to the idea of if existence is true, meaning that
Yes.
things not being structured and things not existing only occur inside of the existence, aka like there are only holes in the fabric. There's nothing outside the fabric.
Yeah. If there are even holes at all, necessarily.
Yeah, I don't think that there are holes.
Like I think that anything which can
Looks
exist
like
does exist.
Do you think there are pores?
Maybe. I don't know what you mean.
I mean, like, do you believe
you
in
can-
empty space?
Empty
I
space.
think you can just.
I believe
describe-
in let's say a vacuum of space-time. I don't believe in an ultimate absence. And I think
You believe in
any,
microcosmic voids, right?
but it's not a void because there are mechanics.
Yeah. There's like so like the
Like
void. What you look is what you see if you look between the things that exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that,
So,
there's these like
it's the
spatial
space between.
relations.
It's the space between. Non-existence is still ordered by the rules of structure.
What was that, sorry?
What we would call the space in between, what we would call this vacuum, which I've been using the word non-existent for, it seems like is still like that non-existence is only possible and present in the realm of an ordered existence. Is that
No, but it's not. Non-existence isn't possible or present anywhere. Non-existence is, by definition, non-existent.
I don't know. I have trouble with the word non.
Okay, well,
I think it's not a great one. Like for to say that there is like a vacuum or like something.
So
between
vacuums or empty
space
No,
space.
let's use the word
like,
absence.
Absence.
Absence
Of
absences
of
absence.
So let's just
To say
quickly
there's an
look at
absence
absence.
between things
Yeah.
is to assign some structure to absence, and like that's not absence.
Yes.
Exactly.
What is
so
the
if we say like something is absent, what we mean is there is an instance of relative absence, right? Something isn't where it could be,
yeah?
right? But what we mean is that it exists, it's just not here. Absence. That's like
Yeah, so
our
my
level
question
of
is this.
absence.
So my question
Yeah,
is this: does that mean that in those spots anything could be?
No, No. So let me get to it. Those spots aren't there as far as I can tell. They're imaginary. Okay, so like
Wow.
absence. Because just listen. Okay, so
Well, by defining them, you're giving them structure.
we have like relative absence, and so then we can make like the inference to like general absence. But what we have is, of course, the idea of general absence.
Mhm.
And that idea is contradictory insofar as the idea is not absent.
Okay.
That there is an idea is a contradiction of absence. The idea is present.
Mhm.
So the idea of absence is contradictory.
Mhm.
And so we're saying those absences you're talking about can't manifest ever because they're completely contradictory. And the only place that they can like try to manifest is in your imagination.
And if it did manifest, it would by definition not be absent.
Can I link you guys? Can I share a PDF with you guys?
Of course.
It's Heidegger on nothingness
Mhm.
and on nothing. And he says something that just sounds a lot like what you guys are saying.
Well, it's not a phenomenological analysis that we're performing.
Okay.
No, but Heidegger does the same argument that when you talk about nothingness, you turn it into something. So
Yes, but it's not
Yeah,
quite the same
that's why-
argument.
Exactly.
So I guess
you
I've
can't get around
sort of
it.
three.
You turn it into something.
I can sort of explain it to an extent. So I see sort of three forms of nothing as like contradictory as that sounds. So first you have like a relative nothing. So for example, like there is a thing and that thing is not present. It's like a specific instance of something not being there. Like the thing would have to exist for it to be missing. It's just that it's not currently in that position. You know, like it's like a relative. The nothing is relative to the thing existing.
Mhm.
And then if you sort of expand upon that principle and apply it to all things, then it is the absence of all things, and then you end up with the idea of nothing. And that is the self-contradictory, broken idea that just you
Right.
can't really make sense of, because
Right.
it's
But then if you need
to
something
try and
and
make sense of it is
you
to
need something
mischaracterize it.
something and nothing together, so you can contrast them. Then you need something that contains both something and nothing as one. And every time you talk, this is what Heidegger talked about. So every time we
Can I
define
get-
or do any description of nothing, we turn it into what it's not. So we actually make it into its opposite. So even
Exactly,
the
so
idea
that's
of
why-
starting with something because you can't have nothing actually turns something into nothing. So you do necessarily.
Can I qualify the last bit that I will
We're
explain
very
that?
familiar with the argument.
So because
You
the
familiar
idea of
with
nothing is
Heidegger's
inherently broken.
Can you stop talking, man?
I'm about to explain. So like yes, I 100% agree. We can only ever interact with the idea of nothing, which exists relative to something, because it is in instantiation, not something. Like by definition, that's how it is instantiated. But that's the idea of nothing, and of course, like any attempts to communicate or work with it in any way is not going to work. Like
Right, but then
so that's why I have a flag, right? So it's not actually a thing, because that would again instantiate the idea of nothing. But I have a flag, which I've called primal nothing, and that signifies the concept that we cannot talk about because it does not exist.
You just talked about it.
No, I just told you about the
Dude,
flag, which
that's
by
bad.
telling you
That's
about the flag instantiates the idea of nothing. I'm referring to the flag. The flag is not referring to anything.
So,
You're not
Deathspell,
referring to something
is it
that doesn't refer-
possible, Deathspell, is it possible you can keep your interjections until the end, man?
Well, but he wanted to discuss with me, so it's
I
not.
mean, like, we're trying to talk to Dharma. He's going to leave soon.
I know, but I was just backing up his claim about Heidegger. That's all.
Yeah, I
know, but
that spell I appreciate it, but what's going on here basically is Nano was asking me about a viewpoint I had. I gave it, Insync showed up somewhat in between, there was some miscommunication on my end, and we got into a bit of an argument. What the initial trigger for all this was, I wanted to hear what Nano's metaphysics was. Him and Insync have come up with their own explanation that though we could sit here and point the holes in it all day, it makes more sense to actually first. Like, we wouldn't really be like, when you read Aristotle, you don't just go attacking his ideas on the without reading the rest of his work after you read 2 sentences. So it's best if we just hear.
That's okay.
It's best if.
But I have.
It's best if we hear everything they're saying.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying I already have read it.
I have no idea what their metaphysics is, and I would appreciate consideration and the general principle of charity if you would allow them to continue for my sake, so I can achieve that same understanding you have, and then we can all talk on an equal platform, because right now I'm very far behind. And thank you in advance for, refraining until these guys continue. And I apologize as well for my own
No, I appreciate that a lot, Dom.
distraction. Of course. So please continue, guys.
That's all right.
Yeah,
all I do is say if you start from a principle, all I was just pointing out.
Yeah, we got it, man.
You want to start from this principle, but it's technically contradictory. So that's all
We
I'm
got it.
saying.
That's okay. I hear you. I hear you, Death. Just by this general principle of charity that I do ascribe to, that I would ask you to respect. If you do have respect for other people's, beliefs or principles, that would mean a lot to me if we just hear the whole thing before we do say it's contradictory. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't have enough information. I'd like to catch up. That's all.
Yeah, so
Thank
I
you.
have this flag which I've called primal nothing to signify a concept which does not exist and thus cannot be talked about. And so, like, you can try and abstractly try and gain like a somewhat of an intuition by applying the idea of nothing, and like sort of, although it is contradictory, use the idea of nothing. So the way the idea of nothing kind of works is it takes all of the things which exist and like inverts them to sort of create a negative image of like it creates a negative space between all of the things when we try and describe nothing.
So that's
And
a metaphor, right?
Yeah, it's a metaphor,
Just
definitely. Like the negative
Just to be
space
clear.
itself doesn't exist, but we can attach.
But negative
this...
space is a good way to describe it, right?
Yeah, because it like negative space is in itself an abstract concept that I'm using to describe like another abstraction, but it's the best I can get to try and like intuit my point across, I guess.
Yep, no, that makes sense to me. I was just wanting to be clear that it was a metaphor.
Yeah. And so, we're not saying that something exists relative to nothing, which I agree that it doesn't make sense, because that sort of implies that nothing is a thing, which I can see your contention there. But what we are actually saying is that something exists relative to something. And so like for a thing to be said to exist, it has to have some kind of structure, and that structure exists relative to the structure of the other things that exist. Does that sort of, are you able to follow that?
Yeah. I got that. Yeah.
And yeah, essentially, where we follow it with this is that like you can like perform this kind of reduction on basically anything. Like any foundational position can be reduced to this position, but as far as we can tell, this cannot really be reduced any further. Like,
Unless,
to
of
be
course,
making-
you think you can get it further down.
Yeah. I would love that. Would be awesome, man.
I know,
Wait,
right?
if I think I can get what further down?
If you think you can
like-
reduce to more fundamental assumptions.
Then like
it seems
like
like
something
what's
exists
being
and-
said is this: the very usage of nothing is a relative construction. So any claims to its contradictory nature arise purely from its syntactic and semantic presence. It purely
Yeah.
shows up as a linguistic
It, like-
inconvenience and limitation of language, when really all we're trying to when
Yeah,
we're
it's the idea
all
which
trying to
inherently misrepresents itself.
Sorry, Dharma.
no problem. It's no worries. It seems like what y'all are saying here. Existence is interdependent on a relative correlative structure, and the conceptions of anything outside or abstaining from this are
What? Sorry. What was the last bit?
hello. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
what
Yeah.
was the
we
last
What
get
I
it.
was saying is, it seems like you're saying like things are extant, right? Existence is true, right?
Yes.
Yes, but it's not quite that. So, like, you were very close on your first count. It's not. I think you said correlative. It's consistency. That's specifically the relationship. Like, it's not just a
Okay.
correlation. It's like the principle of things relating consistently. That's the structure. And then
Okay,
it's
so
not just that
instead of
things
structure,
are true.
so don't kill me. Don't kill me, but instead of structure, do you want to say hypostasis?
What I'm going to say is I'm going to say logic, as in logic in the general sense, which is any type of structure.
Logos.
And in this sense,
Logos,
no, because
right?
logos has connotations I don't mean. Right? Logic is in like an abstract structure. Right? Right, you use a set of logic to interpret something, but
So a
like
system.
insofar as
So a
yeah,
system.
kind of, but more like the rules of a system.
Yeah. Like it's
So
it's
an order.
the rules you use to work with.
Yeah,
the
order.
stuff.
I'll accept that.
Okay, so we're saying that existence
Logic is the order of reality.
So we're saying that this word logic refers to
The consistent
order
relational structure.
that is necessary. It is
Yeah.
the necessary condition.
Yes.
And like that does not necessarily mean like our classical definitions of logic, like the rules of thought and such. It
Yeah,
could-
no, I
it's just
understand. I understand.
some-
A
yeah,
logic. You're
okay.
saying a
Yes.
logic.
Yes.
Right?
Well, technically, I'm saying the logic. As in,
Okay,
like the
but
logic
like,
of the world.
Okay, but like I meant it is
it's
not classical logic.
Well, I think classical logic was derived to be in line with it. That's why reasoning is effective.
Okay, and that is why you use the word as representation,
Yes.
or that
Yeah.
thematic
Correct.
consistency. Okay.
Exactly. And because,
so-
like, when we say, like, we're using logic to analyze the world, it presupposes that the world has a logical structure, and, like, in some sense it does. But the thing is that the relationship between the logical structure of the world and the logical structure of the mind is like a superordinate to subordinate, where the logical structure of the world is in the actual structure of the way things are, the consistent relationships that exist, and the rules that make them up. Are like the more fundamental, and then like the subjective models we have of them are based off that superordinate structure.
Okay. So what I'll say is I believe that we have the ability to glean information without utilizing structures that we currently consider logical, because our own derived logical systems may not currently accommodate the logic. Therefore, I believe that things that people may consider illogical or outside of traditional realms of derived logic, such as certain phenomena, religious or mystical experiences, are able to give us information the logic while not appearing as classically derived iterations at the current moment in time.
But what if what we said was, as we said before, that mystical experiences involve intuitions of the transcendent?
I would absolutely agree with that. But
So then, what
saying,
if I say that classical logic can reduce intuitions of the transcendent into a transcendental basis for reality?
I would say that hasn't been done yet.
Oh well, but that's what we're saying we might have done.
How?
Potentially.
Well, because by applying it to the basis of reality, as we see it.
I think that the only problem and the only foothold that Deathspell had in the little words I heard from him is, as stated before, that we have this sort of linguistic limitation in the explanation, and that as a result we kind of have this level of restriction in explanation that is transcended by experiential.
Give me 1 sec. Is it true that that's necessarily the case, or is it just something you're saying is probably true?
I believe that this is currently the case.
No, but
this is currently the case.
No, but do you believe that is like certain, or do you believe it's probable?
That language
that it's actually the case, and not just certainly, and not just currently the case. Sorry.
I don't believe anything is actually. I know that sounds.
Something has to be actually the case.
I swear, that's. As I said about humility, I'm so sorry. Hello?
You cut out.
I know it sounds like a cop out, and I'm sorry. I'm telling you, my firmest belief is that we don't have actual knowledge on anything.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the point is, maybe we can get an accurate model anyway. That's what science is, right?
Yeah, I think we can get it's like a parabola, you know?
Yeah, but maybe even though we can't check the knowledge, maybe we can get a model that's actually correct.
Yes, I do believe, but I believe that model is verifiable by experiential knowledge.
Well, it's verifiable by reasoning, but it's not. Like, here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying. Is that like intuitions of the transcendent? Perhaps they can be reductively collapsed into a rational understanding of the transcendent.
Well, I think that the entire category of the transcendent forces it to be such that it is not reducible into rational principles because
is that necessarily true?
In my definition of the phrases transcendent or mystical as we use them,
no, but transcendent is a bit.
They are outside of the realm of human reasoning and
no, I don't accept
our explanation. Okay, well that's that's how I see it.
Let's talk about what transcendent means, right?
Okay.
It means like something which is beyond everything you know.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that it is in principle beyond what you could know.
Yes, but what you could explain in words. So
no, but like
transcendent, right? I just pulled up and I don't mean to do this in the antagonistic way it was done.
Mm-hmm.
I just pulled up, just a simple definition of transcendent as well, right?
Yep.
So one of them says, of God, existing apart from and not subject to limitations of the material universe. So
sorry, you're lagging a bit, man.
I'm sorry. One of the definitions says existing apart from and not subject to the limitations of the material universe. In scholastic philosophy, higher than or not included in Aristotle's 10 categories. In Kantian philosophy, not realizable experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what I see in the words.
So I don't agree with the Kantian philosophy definition.
Okay, me neither. I believe it is realizable in experience. I don't believe.
When I say realizable in experience, I mean realizable in abstract reason.
I believe that the reasoning we would use it exists apart from not.
So I said that again.
It says. So like the definition existing apart from and not subject to me that
yeah, but
reason.
There.
To me that includes reason.
Yeah, no, but listen,
So,
what the material universe means is physics, right? And I'm saying that like it is transcendent beyond physics. Yeah.
But then it's transcendent. To me, it's also transcendent beyond reason.
No, but it's
transrational.
Absolute. Listen, it isn't transrational though, because the laws of rationality were derived from the laws of the transcendent truth.
Dharma.
But we don't know the laws of.
Can I clarify what maybe
But
you're trying
the laws of the transcendent.
We do though, because if you look around your environment, the universe has order. And maybe if we look very closely at the order, we can figure out what the primary principles are.
But we cannot measure it, is what I'm saying.
But we don't have to measure it. All we have to do is
that's why it's an abductive argument.
But I think what Dharma's saying.
Yeah. So
if you derive it all.
What I'm saying is that requires.
System, you still need to experience.
Therefore, it requires some level of faith or belief. Some kind of motivation on your to say yes, this is true because I have found it to be accurate, aligned with rationality, even if it isn't testable. It's something experienceable. That to me is what I defined as religious earlier, saying something that's experienceable and realizable without necessarily being observably translatable and measurable. So I would still use the
I would accept that as a mystical experience, but the point is that I'm saying maybe a mystical experience can be reductively collapsed, and we haven't figured out how yet.
To me, that goes against my own.
So I said that again.
To me, that goes against my own personal definitions of mystical experiences as strictly being above those reductibilities. But maybe,
Well, that's
I guess for me, it sort of comes down to like almost a pragmatic argument as to why you would sort of try and strive for something like this, because like if you don't really have the idea that like something can be understood, then like you can't really even take a first step. Mm-hmm. Like you sort of need to assume that understanding it itself may be possible.
I believe there are functions. I believe we may not be able to test this, but we may be able to do it in a way where, like, I don't believe we can find the entire.
No, but there is a test. Here's the thing: there is a test. The test is, I tell you, like, the reasoning, and you tell me if you hear a mistake, and then at the end, if you haven't heard a mistake and you agree with me that it explains what I think it does, then we tested it.
But there's still, what I'm trying to say is there are still elements that are not being captured by our discussion that are included.
Yeah, but let's try really hard. No, yeah, let's just try really hard. Let's assume that it's true. Describe them.
So I think that the thing is, like, we have to make these kind of jumps in fitting it. And in doing that, I follow you and agree with you off of belief and faith and inclination, rather than, like, the reason why we can jump and make certain solutions is because there's something more than just rationality that is at play here. There's something more than strict logic at play here. There's some kind of generosity being given in our agreement. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat yourself. Sorry.
Sorry, you said you're gonna have me repeat it?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
You repeat yourself? Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. What I'm saying is, like, in saying, like, let's assume and we could do it, and what if, these philosophical inclinations we're making, suggestions we're making, involve the rationality of the logical conclusions we've made and the following we've made, but there are jumps. There are
Where are the
followings that. Well, think about us having to classify the conditions of nothingness and non-existence, surpass linguistic barrier.
Yes. So the question is, let's have a look at that definition then. Do you disagree with it? Because I'm saying like nothingness is an absolute absence. That's the definition. I'm telling you, I've checked.
Well, what I'm saying is like I do definition value. Everyone has different definitions, and like which definitions are considered real are based off ideas of. So I don't feel like there is an absolute.
No, but I'm saying like let's try to agree on the definitions, and maybe we can get somewhere. Right. So the question is, do you have a problem with the definition I'm using?
No. I agreed with everything you're saying except the idea that we can capture the whole of the logic with a system that can be said in words.
No, but here's the thing: it's like you can't like contest that fairly, though, right? Because you don't have evidence that we can't. I'm saying
but we don't have evidence for.
No, but I'm saying I think I have evidence that we can. Right, so like it's not really a fair way to dismiss the argument to say like you don't agree that we can capture it. Why don't you just give us the benefit of the doubt and we'll keep walking through it?
What I'm saying is I can. What I'm saying is I can agree. Giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, but here's what I'm saying is like
participating in something transrational.
Look, what I'm saying is it's not necessarily transrational.
What? Sorry?
I'm saying it's not necessarily transrational.
There's our definitional.
No, but here's what I'm saying. It's like, why don't you give us the benefit of the doubt, and we'll walk through it. And if there are leaps, if there are definitions you don't accept.
Well, giving you the benefit of the doubt.
No, I'm saying give us the benefit of the doubt for now, so that we can continue to. No, I'm not saying use that as the end conclusion. I'm saying give us the benefit of the doubt. Assume that maybe it can be described in language, and tell me if you can tell me how I'm not doing it.
Well,
okay, because if it's true,
my problem here, in my mere definition of dental, and this transcendent, and this,
your mic keeps cutting out.
I'm really sorry, man. Can you hear me?
Do you have like automatically detect voice turned on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good. You have to turn off the automatically determined bit. Like what I'm trying to say is.
Okay, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay, so hear me out for.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is, if I give you the benefit of the doubt, and then you show me like through later logical conclusions that you do reduce it to language, can that possibly change my mind of it not being reducible to language? So I'm saying that my mere definitions of the mystical experience and the transcendent nature and transrationality say that these things cannot be reduced to language or any kind of like human translatability that isn't experiential in like terms of like specifically mind related. Because of that definition I personally hold, which I agree to be a belief, if I categorically cannot give you a reason why it doesn't fit except for vaguely saying I can't explain it because my very definition says that it's outside of the realm of my explanation of it to you. It's categorically outside of the realm of explanation. So we would have to use a different word besides mystical in that case. Or transcendent.
So, what would be the like justification for using a different word, sorry?
Huh?
So like we're talking about like not using the word transcendent, right? But like I thought that we agreed before that if we could arrive at the conclusion that there was a better word than the words that you were using, that you would agree to change your words, right?
Yeah, I would, but transcendent is still a word that fits the idea that it cannot fit into a human lens because it is transcendent of it. It is not limited to it. So anything we do in an attempt to reduce it into our limits will fail automatically, categorically, denotationally. So yes, we can still strive to find that other word, but transcendent is not it. That's the conclusion I'm coming to.
How do you know for sure, though?
Oh, just purely by my denotation of transcendence. I'm basically asking if we can use a different word.
Okay.
What's your different word there?
We have to find it together in our exploration of this
Okay,
theory.
fair enough.
So let's keep walking through it and functionally use transcendent as if we do give the benefit of the doubt that it can be reduced. Keep moving and keep in mind throughout it that it will help us. It'll at least help me with my current denotation of transcendence if we do replace it at the end of the day while functionally agreeing this is possible. Is that agreeable?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Keep on going, my friends.
All right. Did you want to keep going, or did you want to change over, Chris?
I'm like, I need to sleep, honestly.
Lame.
I'll
All
probably
right.
listen in. I might chip in a bit, but yeah, I need to sleep. Like,
Yep.
it's
So
been,
like
several days.
what we're talking about is like an abductive explanation leading us to like what we would say are the fundamental axioms of reality, and then a deductive argument to get from there to here, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah. A deductive argument to bridge the gaps following the introduction, which is abduct.
Just the one gap, the gap from the basis of reality to this specific system.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, we're starting with like Descartes' reasoning. Do you accept Descartes' reasoning?
Cogito ergo sum, I shake things up, therefore
I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am, thus I exist. Do you accept that line of reasoning?
not really.
Why
Not from the Cartesian sense. Only because Descartes doubles back on it later and uses it as an explanation to say,
No, but
I
I'm
think,
not
therefore.
asking. Yeah, I'm not asking about that. I'm just asking, like, do you think do you think the conclusion does not follow?
I think, therefore I am.
I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am.
I mean, it's just important to keep in mind the context in which Descartes said this, right? Because
Yeah, but I'm just
everything we
saying,
say
like,
is-
in terms of like analyzing the statement, right? I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am, right? So the first proposition is about expressing doubt, right? And the argument is something like, well, you're supposed to doubt everything, right? And so that's the thing that you are doing. I doubt, right? And then you say, so like, in order to doubt, I have to be thinking because doubting is a part of a thinking process, right? And then if you're thinking, you can conclude that you exist, right? Do you genuinely dissent from that? Do you believe you don't exist?
I am constantly struggling with this train of thought because I do find a lot of merit in philosophies of emptiness and ideas of an empty self and the lack of self or anatman. I do think that this is a conclusion I can follow, but one that I don't follow as an absolute.
Okay,
I'm not
but
sure how
like,
you
does it?
divorce that from
Yeah.
structure, though.
Are you
Doesn't it-
saying like, is it syntactically solid to me?
I'm asking, does it necessarily follow?
Depending on definitions of self, yes.
Okay,
You have
so
to.
I'm going
You
to
have
take
to.
that as a yes.
You have to qualify definitions of self, of existence, and of thought. in order to have it follow.
I mean, the word self isn't used. The I is used.
No, I know. I meant I.
Okay. So, like, I is the thinking subject that is described in the second proposition, don't you think?
Yes.
Yes. So, we agree about that. What were the other two definitions you wanted me to clarify?
So the argument may be in that, do we think? Are we autonomous beings? You know, are we autonomous beings, or are we playing out a puppet role? Or are we empty illusions? You know, are we figments of a dream? You know, there are all these possible questions that can be posed in an overall metaphysic.
Yes. Well, I would say
But they all seem like things to me.
Yeah, but they doesn't necessarily mean that they are
Okay, that's fair.
thinking.
It's genuinely a fair call. But look, what I'm
and
gonna
like
say-
I
what
don't
do you
need
just
to
to clarify?
I hope I'm not coming off as antagonistic or overly critical.
No.
I just want to give you guys. I just want to continue to give my lens as we talk through it, because as I receive your lens, I want you to see that I have to move out of the philosophies I hold to follow yours and present mine, so you know where I'm traveling out of. You know,
Chris,
that way whenever you may hear any points I make, you know where I'm coming from to a degree, and then you'll be able to follow me as I'm following you. You know what I mean?
Chris.
Yep.
If this guy thinks he's being disagreeable, I must be the biggest asshole in the entire world.
Yeah, you're even extremely what's the word? Where you cooperate, that we hope, and like you engage.
Cooperative?
I can't think of the word.
Thank
I
you.
guess.
I mean, I see, even if there is disagreement in our beliefs, I want to be able to coherently follow your opinions and your logic and your deductions and your conclusions. You know, even if at the end of the day I say, I don't think that's true, I can still say, I know how you got there, and I respect you. And I just want to be able to do that for you, and I want that to be able to be done for me. You know, I'm here for that.
Yeah, I have a question about your the like sort of empty self viewpoint. Would that be sort of like fair to describe it as like existence is false to an extent?
It's kind of described as like, I think that a lot of people would say that. I think I would say it like, this mode of existence that we currently experience may not necessarily be an accurate model for our interpretations of the world, because we only have such a small lens and view of what existence is. Therefore, we may not have any ability to even qualify a state of existence in the first place. Therefore, it may not even be fair to call myself an agent or an I or a subject or a thinking.
Doesn't
being.
that,
You know what I mean?
Doesn't that always presuppose some kind of existence, though?
So my version does.
At the very
my
least,
version
saying,
does. Yes,
but
the version I stretched out definitely presupposes some kind of existence.
Doesn't everybody's version do that?
Yes. I mean I think so, but I think it presupposes a
Like
kind
for
of
instance,
is
if you
outside
say,
of the grasp. It's outside of the grasp of our understanding.
yeah, but look,
entirely.
if you say like reality is an illusion, you're saying an illusion exists.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I don't see
I'm
a way
saying
around
that.
that.
I'm saying that I would expand that belief to reality is a concept that is completely incomprehensible in its entire form to humans.
Well, that's a
That
proposition.
is one mode. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would probably take exactly the opposite position, to be honest.
Yeah, I can definitely see that from our conversation, but that doesn't mean I don't want to hear this, and that doesn't mean either of our minds can't change, and it doesn't mean there aren't compromises to be made, because in terms of at least our discussion of definitions, I've been really happy with this conversation, and I've been really happy with the way this is going.
I love your attitude. Like 10 out of 10 debate.
Thank you, man. Thank you. You know, like it's not about who. To me, it's not about like is your position valid. It's is your position something I can follow? Is it something I can put my shoe? I can sit in it? Is it something I can say this is true and I feel it's true? And is it something that I can say, hey, even if I don't think it's true, I know why you do. And if I can, we've had this. You've successfully communicated to me.
I think that's the correct mode of interaction for this kind of discussion. I think that's very respectable.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And I, you know, like I know I can expect the same from you guys. I can tell, you know.
So I don't actually remember where I got up to though. Do you wanna? I don't. Let's see. All right. Okay, so yeah, I was talking about Descartes' reasoning, right? What were the definitions we were quibbling over? We were talking about self, which I think I adequately defined self. It was the thinking subject in the second statement, and then there was also, what were the other two? Sorry, do you happen to remember?
I'm sorry. I was just typing. Could you say that again? I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all good, man. I was just wondering, like we were arguing about a couple of definitions. One of them, I thought that like I clarified, which was we share the definition on self, where self is like the thinking subject in the second proposition. What were the other two contentions that we had? Oh, typing.
Oh, against the Kogiro ergo sum. Against that.
Yeah.
I can't necessarily remember, but I think it's that the argument against whether or not we are actually thinking beings, whether or not we can classify ourselves as subjects.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so
accurately.
Look, I think that those
outside
are
of the
valid questions.
Outside of the
all
like
valid questions.
Outside of the linguistic semantics.
Here's the thing: is right. All valid questions to which there is, in principle, a valid answer. Right. So, no matter what you say about yourself, right? Because the reason that Descartes produced that reasoning is that he thought of his thought experiment with that demon, right? And the demon who could be contriving absolutely everything you think is true, even though it's not. Like, it's just the powers of a demon, right? Ultimately, when you say, I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am, what you're saying is like, like I am in a state of doubt because I know that I could be wrong about everything, right? But being in a state of doubt is the act of thinking. And even if I am actually wrong about being in the act of thinking, what I conclude from the fact that I think I'm thinking is simple. I can conclude that I exist in the sense where I is not explicitly delineated, but refers to whatever it is that I am unbeknownst to me. Right? Whatever the experience that the thinking subject has, all right, for them to have an experience, there has to be something that is true, undeniably. Do you accept that? My dude typing again. What's going on?
Sorry, I believe that there is. I believe that there is a marker linguistically for a specific individuation of an instance that we may refer to as I, and that it occurs in manners in which we denote as experience. I do not agree that we have to clarify or classify that existence as an objective truth, rather more just an occurrence.
No, but what we're saying when we're saying it's an occurrence is that like something is occurring, and if something is occurring and something is truly occurring, there is something which is true, which is the occurrence, whatever that might be.
So what I'm saying is this, that occurrence may not necessarily be observable or realizable or considered true by instantiations outside of that individualized occurrence. So
yeah, but that's not the point. What I'm saying is that even if it's
no,
not
I know, but I'm saying that in the lens of the overall argument.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you're saying there are things outside of it which wouldn't consider it true, you're saying those things are true, right? That's why I brought up Descartes' demon. It's like, even if nothing about you is real, the demon has to be true, right? There always has to be something that is true. It has to terminate the regression.
So
even if none of it's real.
So what are we qualifying as truth or true?
Okay, we're saying true is like existent, corresponding to reality, having reality.
So what I'm saying is, if we're even questioning the nature of reality in the first place, it's difficult to claim that things are true. Like, you know what I mean?
No, but what we're saying is that if there is a reality, there is something true. That's what reality means. It's real.
Yeah, but I think, or I'm saying it more in the sense that, like, this may be an instantiation microcosmically of a reality in which our behavior
but what I'm saying is
considered macrocosmically true. Therefore,
no, but what I'm saying is
we may
no matter
not
what
necessarily.
it is, right? Like, I agree with that, but no matter what it is, something, even if it's something we cannot conceive of or postulate, something has to be true. That just is a fact.
In our lens, in our experience,
No,
and
in
perspective
an
of the world.
objective sense.
Yes, yeah, but like the conceptions of truth in the first place are created by human beings. We did not hear about
I don't
truth
agree with
from
that.
another.
We assign
But, like,
the label but like
yeah.
the idea of truth, as in corresponding with reality, isn't something we invented. There had to be a reality completely apart from any invention we had that existed, and so when our quote-unquote inventions were consistent
But
with that
we've
reality,
given name. We've given name to instances that occur, and we have labeled their collective as reality when we have had not even the slightest glimmer of the totality of these instances. So what I'm saying is, any claims
I'm
we
saying,
make on the nature of it are forever going to be completely
look, man,
unachievable.
I'm saying insofar as the reality is real, it is true. If it's not real, it's not reality. And if it is real, it is true. Those are equivalent.
What I'm saying is, like, that is ultimately just a semantic proof. Like, that's something
Yes,
that's
but do you
displayed
agree that
by
the semantic
human
proof is
labels.
sound? I accept that. Do you agree the semantic proof is sound?
If you agree it's sound specifically within the lens of our human framework that we have conceived.
Yes, but the point is that we don't know when what sound in our human framework is connected to what is actually objectively sound. We don't know when that's happening. It could be happening.
I agree.
So, do you agree that the semantic equivalence is sound? If something is real, it's true.
Within its own rules that were conceived.
No, but we don't. No, but we agreed. We don't know if that is the case. We just think that we don't know whether it's affecting anything outside of its own rules. It could be that
within the rules that we know that we use, that we don't know if it's correlated successfully with the whole.
Yes, but it could, right? It's possible.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and so what we're saying is, like, because it's possible, and because we agree about the semantic like equivalence, we can use that to reason about it with the assumption that it is in fact possible, right?
We can reason about it that it is possible, but possibility does not equate to the absolute truth.
No, I'm saying that, like, because you can't say it's necessarily false, right? We can use the semantic equivalence that we just agreed was sound here to reason about the world as if that semantic equivalence did equal the world and test for inconsistencies. So we're saying
we just don't have any support behind that.
No, but there is support. The semantic soundness of the argument is the support.
but because we don't know of its actual accuracy.
No, but the point is, this is all we have.
It's only support.
I agree. No, listen, I agree. This is all we've got.
So listen, it being all we have is my entire prerequisite for its mystical nature.
No, but I'm saying it doesn't have to necessarily be mystical. I'm saying it's all we've got, so we'll use it, and we'll assume that maybe we can get from what we've got to truth. And so insofar as we make those assumptions together, and we accept that the semantic equivalence is sound, then what we can say is that when you observe that you doubt that you exist, it must be true that something is true, even if you have no fucking clue what that something is. Something in general. A proposition has to be true. In principle.
Again, in our work, like in the semantic equivalence.
No, I'm saying in principle. Right? That already makes the distinction that it is in our understanding. So, like, in principle.
The level of but like what I see here is that it's not like a black and white. It's not like there is an entire understanding or no understanding. There is a spectrum of understanding which we don't have the entirety of, which we're assuming we have the entirety of in order to move on. That uncertainty alone is the missing piece. The massive.
No, but what I'm saying is that we don't need certainty. Let's just be confident together, right? Let's use.
So that confidence is a human condition, right?
Yes, but what we can say is that by being clear about our epistemological limitations, we can justify our confidence. So
I think that is giving too much credit to human perspective, too much credit to human perception.
No, but maybe, but also let's try, right?
Yes, it's worth a try. I just remain unconvinced.
I know. I feel like you keep defaulting to your unconvinced position halfway through the reasoning, though.
You're right. We need to keep going through. I haven't even heard the entirety of your work, and I'm sorry.
So, like, I'm saying, like, and you're going to fall back to the fact that you're not convinced, but I'm just saying, like, just based on the semantic soundness, something, like, if you can say that you doubt you exist, then even if you doubt that, something has to be true, right? Just based on the semantic soundness of saying that, like, reality and truth
because
are
we
like
accept the existence of truth values, something must be true.
Well, not exactly. More like because we accept that we have an experience, something must be true, because otherwise there would be no foundation for the experience.
Do you consider dreams to be true?
I consider dreams to be a type of truth. They're a hallucination.
Do you consider, like, that earlier example I gave of a woman sitting down who actually experiences in her own lens herself sitting down with Jesus and talking to him? Do you consider that to be true?
Sorry, say that again.
So like let's say like a guy is praying in a church and he says he sees the light of God, and to him he actually sees the light of God descend and God talks to him or something like that, right? Some version to him. Is that true?
Yes.
Is that true?
No, I don't think so. It's probably a hallucination, but that's a true type of phenomenon. It's probably
so
a
what do you mean?
hallucination.
So can you explain that? Like how? Like what is the type of truth that falls under hallucination?
Like it's a neurological phenomenon. It's like an illusion. Like it's not that the thing you're looking at is false. It's that your brain is misinterpreting what is actually true.
That's what I see with our entire endeavor.
Yes, but I'm saying like even if you're misinterpreting it all, yeah, to misinterpret it, it has to be true. Somehow, in some respect, it has to be. There's no doubt about it.
So what you're saying is like even if
to misinterpret it, there must be something to interpret.
So even if the guy says he sees God, etc., etc., he's misinterpreting the phenomenon, but the phenomenon is occurring.
Yes.
I agree. Yes, I agree. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I follow. I'm sorry that took so long. I work like
That's okay. So I'm just going to make sure that we do in fact agree, because I'm worried that we don't. All right. So
we agree that if an experience occurs, then something occurs. Therefore, something is extant. Therefore, there is some truth in our definition of what's true because something happened, even if it's not what we claim happened. Even if we
So something is true.
Something occurs. I would rather we said that.
I mean, they're the same though, because for something to occur, it has to actually exist. Otherwise, it doesn't occur.
But okay, so in the case of the hallucination, what we think is occurring isn't what's actually occurring, but something is still occurring.
Yes, but something is actually occurring, and something does actually exist.
That's what I'm asking. So like something is actually occurring, just not what we think is occurring.
Yes, but what I'm saying is like a hallucination, even if it's not what it appears to be, is still some kind of existent thing, right? Like
the hallucination is what's existent, not the.
No, but like it's two things.
Content.
It's like your perception of it is flawed, and it's also actually a thing that you're misinterpreting.
Yeah, so your conception of it isn't true, but the event is true.
Yes, but there is something true then, and we agree about that.
Yes.
Okay, so when you say something is true, you're actually making a couple of more fundamental assumptions in order to say that.
Say that one more time. I missed it.
When you say that something is true, you're making a few more fundamental assumptions, two of them, in order to say that something is true.
I accidentally clicked out. I'm sorry. Can you say that one last time?
Okay, so when you say something is true, you are necessarily making two more fundamental assumptions. Like, in order to make that proposition, you have to make two assumptions.
So that means that what we're saying is like, even in order to like determine truth, we must make an assumption.
No, I'm saying in order to propose that anything is true, there are a couple of implicit assumptions.
What would those assumptions be?
Those assumptions are that there is data, for one. Right? In order to propose that something is true, there has to be something, and since data is uninterpreted information, whatever that something is made of data. Do you dissent with the first one?
So, like, follow me here, right? Let's say that you have a program open, right? And you put in a code, and that's data, right? Now, let's say that you press enter.
I mean, no, but keep going. That's a computer science version of data.
Oh, yeah. I'm giving an analogy.
Yeah, but I'm talking about general data.
Yeah, I follow. Okay, so I understand that you mean that like anything to observe is data. Like anything.
But it's before the observation that it's data.
Yeah.
You enter information into a computer.
Yeah.
Not data.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you wouldn't consider information to also be data?
Information is data after it's been integrated into a subject.
Okay. So
information is data used to inform you.
I don't know. So like my perspective is that the data is not separate from like for me.
But it is. We just said that before. It's a hallucination, right?
Let's think about it.
The data is what's true.
There's only one body of data.
No, let's look.
Our observation distinguishes it.
Let's just quickly. We're talking about the hallucination, right? So the data is the thing that actually is as it is, and then the information is the thing you perceive, and your information can be wrong, but the data cannot be wrong.
Yeah, like in itself versus in your eyes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
That's
information
Hegel
is
does that.
data. So information is data you're using to inform yourself. That's why it's called information.
Yes.
So, right, what we're saying is that before you have used it to inform yourself, it's data. And data is what we call it when it exists in the world apart from your perception. Right? All objects are made up of data. Because no matter what it is that they're made up of, right? The ability to describe it in any fashion means that it has characteristics, and if it has characteristics, then it is made up of things that are you could use to inform your perception about it, and anything you can use to inform yourself is fundamentally data.
Okay.
Okay, so so what I'm saying is, like, when we say that something is true, we are necessarily making the assumption that data exists. The data actually exists. It has to, otherwise there cannot be a something. Yep. And so then, when we say that that something is true, we make the assumption that logic exists, that there are things that are true, that truth is a structure in the world, and that the thing that we are talking about, the data, right, whatever that something is, has a manifest structure. That's what we mean when we say that it is true. So those are the two assumptions that you necessarily make to say that there is something that exists. And so that's the abductive argument, is that that's how you get these assumptions, which is data exists and logic exists. Right? And so then we're saying from those two premises, you can derive as a logical consequence the existence of this universe and ourselves within it.
Yeah. Okay.
And if, as I say, the premises I'm talking about can be used to derive that conclusion, and the premises can be shown to be necessarily true, right? Then isn't that an explanation of the thing that you're saying you probably can't capture in words?
The only gap that I see here is that we are using language, which is a human construction, in order to codify and lock down this logic.
So why don't we say, for instance?
Therefore, well, one sec. All I'm saying here is that any human construction we use is going to limit the entirety of the explanation, because we are going through the journey of classifying and rationalizing and constructing these premises. As a result, I don't give enough credit to human beings in our ability to capture this whole. So as a result, I will continue to believe that this isn't capturing the whole thing. I do believe that you have constructed.
Let's examine that reasoning.
I think you have linguistically and logically constructed something that, by definition, captures a whole, but in terms of its actual content, misses out on what I consider to be that mystical aspect.
That's fair, but I think that, like, if that's true and it's actually missing instead of reductively collapsed into our model, then you should be able to demonstrate that to me in future arguments, right? Like, it should be possible to show me that I'm leaving something out, if that is indeed the case.
I believe it's demonstratable outside of the method of language. I believe that because it isn't through mystical experiences, through
but I've had mystical experiences, bro. I've taken a shitload of psychedelics, and I'm telling you that like the mystical experience,
do you feel like you can put every part of that experience into words?
Yes, I do. Yep. I've done so. I can send you an article I wrote on it.
I don't think I don't think I could do it. I would be fascinated. I would be fascinated to read the article. Please send it to me.
I'll send it to you.
I'm down to read it, and like maybe it'll change my mind. But I still at the moment disagree, and I hope you do see where I'm coming.
That's fair. Dude, cool. I completely support someone being skeptical. Like, I would be so skeptical of someone telling me the shit I'm telling you, dude.
But do you see like my reasons for it? is my question.
Of course, but I think that
Okay,
I
great.
just think that over time we will come to see whether or not your reasons are as justified as they seem to you right now. Because, as I said, if there is a way that I am missing something crucial that you can see, you should be able to show me.
Well, what I was if you remember, what I was saying originally is that the reason I use words like mystical, transcendent, transrational, and religious from the beginning is because these are experiences that are true in their experience and that they occur.
Yeah,
But they
they're
are not.
authentic.
Yes, but they are not translatable.
No,
They
but
are
here's the
not
thing: is I
observable
translate
by.
them. Dude, I've taken psychedelics a lot. I've spent a lot of time with people who have taken psychedelics, and I'm very, very good at listening to someone's experience.
Do you think that
Listening to
100%
someone.
of the 100% of the information is transferred?
I think that all of the information that isn't transferred is safely assumed to be part of the structure I'm describing. Because the thing is that, like, when I say, for instance, right, when we're talking about the psychedelic experience, right, there's this thing that happens, for instance, I'll just deal with one of the archetypal experiences, right? You get really, really fucked up on psychedelics, or let's say you meditate a lot, you know what I mean, for a long fucking time. And so it's like, you get to a state, it's much better example of psychedelics.
But look, can you show me the colors you see on
No,
psychedelics?
Listen, I'm talking about a specific experience.
Can you make me feel the feelings you see?
Dude, that's not the point. You're talking about the authenticity of it, okay? I'm saying it's
I'm
my
talking about
judgment.
translating all of
Yes,
the.
listen. It's my judgment that if you cannot explain to me what you think you know, then you do not really know it. Okay, so someone who can't explain to me what they think they understand probably do not really understand it themselves, because if they really did, they'd be able to explain it.
Well, that is why I do say that it is something that I do not understand. And
no, I know, but what I'm saying is, like, if you admit that you don't understand it, then you can't really, like, effectively oppose someone who's saying they do, because you're saying you don't. That disqualifies
you
your
wouldn't be
opinion.
able to you wouldn't be able to argue it within the realm of logic because the argument is constructed infallibly within the realm of logic. That much I definitely agree. I agree.
I'm just going to deal with the psychedelic situation I was describing, right?
Let me
Right,
say
so, like,
this. Let me say this. Let me say this. If you can show me what you see on psychedelics, right? If you can make me experience all those things exactly as you did, then it's translatable to me. Otherwise, putting it into words is an explanation, but not a perfect transference of the data. It's a description of the data. You know what I mean? And
look, I understand what you're saying.
At the same time, like all I'm saying is this. All I'm saying is this. I think that yes, I do not have an understanding in the moment, but that we can achieve in which we have the understanding and then lose those states. I believe that those states can occur out of time or in instances. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Just let me, like, try to deal with, like, one specific example of an authentic experience, and let's see how I do. Lots of people who take psychedelics report similar experiences. One of the most common ones, one of the archetypal psychedelic experiences, is encountering an ultimate being who people call God. They say they meet God, right, in their trip, right? You would say that's a mystical experience, right? I'm saying, I think, neurochemically, it is a hallucination. Scientifically, it is a hallucination. And so what I
do
think is
believe
happening,
from these lenses, that is what it is.
Listen, what I'm saying is, from a reductive lens, here is what is happening. The psychedelic makes you hallucinate, and when you're hallucinating, your ability to coherently perceive the world declines, and your subconscious projection increases, because that's how your brain compensates, right? You project what you think might be true because you have no fucking clue how to figure out what is true, and the less sense you can make of the world, the more you are projecting your subconscious beliefs onto it. All right? So when you are so fucked up that you can't tell what's what, and you come across your own ego right? Your own self, the idea you have of yourself, but you're so fucked up that you can't recognize that it is you, maybe you think it's God. That's not that out there.
So I do believe these are legitimate lenses. I also know there are other lenses. There
Such
are
as?
the views. There are the views of the mystical lens. There are views.
Yeah,
of
but
the
if
religious
you
lens.
can't explain
That-
to me a view,
Well, listen. People have explanations that they acquire a sort of coherence and a sort of mental state that is not normally accessible from the
yeah, but I have done them.
default sober state. And,
No, but
and
I've
they
done
say that,
those drugs, man.
yeah,
That's
so have I.
those.
So have I.
But here's what I'm saying.
Experiences like this are individuated. They're subjective, is what I'm saying.
Yes, but the point is they're
our
archetypal.
measurement of them biologically, neurologically, the measurements that we make allow us to read data. But the projections we make in connecting that data to the experience itself is a human action. Therefore, it does not display any kind of absolute.
No, I don't accept that. The point is that it's a psychological archetype.
But that is that entire like mindset of the framework of a psychological archetype is created by human beings.
No, no, it isn't. Nope, no. It is biologically evolved. Psychology is a biologically evolved level of analysis.
We make these measurements. We make
no,
these
but that's not the point.
We
No.
track
Your
this progress.
psychology does.
We observe this data and create this
Dude,
information.
Does your ego do that, or do you?
I do that, just like I do other things.
That's the technical term for it. It's called an ego. Your ego does it.
But
Your idea of
what I'm trying to say is like these classifications that we create are created by us. Therefore,
no, I don't accept that.
I believe words are created by human beings and labels and classifications.
I think words are sounds that are created by human beings in the sense that we're making the sounds, but what we signify with the arbitrary symbols are not products of human perception. They're patterns that exist in the natural world.
I disagree. I believe that these are patterns projected.
Well, then how does science work?
Onto
so you're saying science works because we think it does?
Well, it works because we have functional knowledge. The measurements allow us to make advances.
You just said we projected. We projected. That's what you said. So how does the knowledge allow us to make advances?
Because we are able to create frameworks that partially work with the world. Science is constantly revised. Science is
you just say
the very fundamentals.
Project?
Yes.
So, like, what are we projecting? Are the rules of the world projected from the mind?
We are measuring. We create rulers.
No, I'm asking. Like, are the rules
that's what I'm saying.
Of the world?
We are creating rules that we constantly change.
Are the rules of the world projected from the mind?
The rules of which we believe to be the rules of the world from one lens, the scientific lens, are created by human beings. Other rules are also created by human beings.
No, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about the laws of nature.
Like the words laws of nature and what they signify are created by human beings.
That govern
concepts of nature did not exist before human beings.
Not concepts. Principles that govern nature independently of your ability to articulate them. Does that suffice?
We have approximations. We have approximations of them. We make sense.
No, but that's not the point. The point is that I'm saying that the fact is that there are principles, even if you're not here to call it a principle, there are rules that govern the natural world. So the question is,
I disagree.
Are those rules? So you disagree that there are rules?
I disagree that there are rules intrinsic to the fabric of the universe that were present before human ability
then where do the
to
rules
identify
come from?
them. We identify them.
So then how did we evolve if there weren't rules?
What do you mean, how did we evolve?
So you said that humans identified rules, but like we evolved according to the rules in evolution.
We tracked our progress according to the rules that we created later and then looked back retroactively. That's what I'm saying.
Dude, you're not listening. You're not listening to me. I'm saying the rules of nature permitted us to evolve to get to this point where we could describe them. Were they there before we described them?
I'm saying we described them
That's a yes
first.
or a no?
I'm saying we described them first.
Yes, I understand what you said. Can you please try to answer the question?
And then we looked we utilize the data to create observations and create trends and create patterns, and we made one
No,
that
I don't
fits.
accept that.
And
Nope,
whenever,
don't
well,
accept
think
that.
about this. Well, think about this. Rules in math, rules in science are constantly changing. We're
No,
constantly
our
finding.
interpretation of the rules is constantly changing. There's a difference between
Well,
a
all
model
we
and
have
a
is
thing
our
that is modeled.
all
No,
we have
no,
to work
not
with
true.
is our interpretation. All we have to work
That's
with is our
not true.
interpretation. How can we
That
escape
isn't
our
true.
interpretation? How?
Because we can say across history our interpretation has continuity, and the continuity that our interpretation has, the fact
It
that
doesn't.
we can
It
stop,
doesn't.
stop for a sec.
It doesn't.
The fact that we can get closer to the truth using science shows that there is something about our interpretation that is consistent with the actual structure of the world.
There isn't continuity, though. Science has constantly contradicted itself. You've found
No, but there is
incredibly-
continuity. I'm sorry, wait a minute. Let's think about this, all right? So, when we have a scientific revolution, isn't the revolution the establishment of consistency in all the things we thought we knew based on a new revolutionary idea?
Or completely flipping over everything we thought we knew, which has happened many times throughout history, where we
No,
say,
but it's not completely flipping it over. It's
That has
changing
happened.
what we know. Dude, even if it changes to an opposite interpretation, the what we think we know thing is still like, we still think that the same evidence is relevant, don't we? It's not all changing. There's a
It depends
progression.
on the instance. It's it's a progression, but that to me is not an uncovering of truth. It is to me a building
if it's
of
a
a better
progression that
machine.
permits accuracy over time,
It
where does the
increases
accuracy
our
come from?
it increases our functional ability. It increases
I don't
our
understand what
ability.
you're saying. Where does that come from?
Human creation. It's
No,
human.
no. Are you saying it is the product of the human mind that science works? That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Science is a measurement used by human beings in order to make sense of the world.
Methodology. Science is a methodology, it's not a measurement.
I don't see those as mutually exclusive terms.
Science is not one measurement. Science is the methodology used to derive all measurements. They are different.
Not all measurements, all scientific measurements.
All empirical measurements. All measurements that qualify as a measurement.
Science is one epistemology, is what I'm trying to say.
No,
What I'm trying to say is that
scientific epistemology is one epistemology. Science is a theory of the world that involves the way that we come to know things.
and what I'm saying is there are other theories of the world that involve the way.
But that's
that
not the
we come
point.
to
The
know
point
things.
is that I'm asking, where does the effectiveness of science come from?
I'm saying that it comes from our trial and error, experimentation, replication, observation.
No, but that's not an answer to the question, man. I'm saying, why does trial and error produce accuracy? That implies that there is something true.
Because we try things till they work.
Listen. For things
We
that
find-
you think, listen. For things that you think to fail, that indicates what's true isn't predicated on what you think.
Yes.
Yes, but just before you said that we project the rules of the world onto the world from our minds.
Yeah, and then when it doesn't work,
No,
we
those two
adjust to make it
statements are
work.
not consistent.
When it doesn't work, we adjust to make it work.
Then we don't project the rules. For it to not
How?
work means
We are the ones adjusting it.
No,
We are adjusting what the rules say.
Listen. Yes, but the rules couldn't contradict us if they were just representative of what we thought they were.
I can interject real quick. I gotta head to sleep. But it was really good talking to you guys. Hope to
You too,
catch
man.
you
Have
around.
a good-
Have a good
No.
night, dude.
What I'm trying to say here is that it working and these things occurring is just one way that we have unfolded and interacted with the world. We don't know what
Yes.
other methods we could have gone down.
Listen,
You know?
dude. Please, I'm asking you, try to answer my question directly. Don't give a roundabout answer, all right? The question is, how is it possible for one model to be more effective than another model? How is that possible? Because if your proposition about the mind projecting the rules onto the reality, then what the mind projects should never encounter contradiction. Because
No,
the
I'm not
rules of
saying
the
that.
reality.
I'm
But
not
you did
saying
say
that.
that.
I'm saying our mind projects these rules. The rules are not always consistent with reality itself.
Okay, so then the mind isn't projecting the rules, it's generating a set of rules to model reality. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So then the rules of reality pre-exist our minds, correct?
No, because our minds
No,
are
but
generating the
what?
rules.
No, but you just equivocated. No.
What I'm saying is
Incorrect.
I have no idea if there are rules to reality
No,
before
but you
human
did
beings
just
generating them.
equivocate.
How?
Because you admitted to me that your mind generated a model of the rules, but that the rules were outside your mind and were not projected onto the reality by your mind. But
I'm
then
sorry.
when I took that,
I thought you meant your mind generates the rules themselves. That's what I'm saying. Your mind
I'm
generates
saying that
rules
the
and
laws
applies
of
them
nature.
and tries them, and they work or they
Stop.
don't work.
Your mind generates subjective rules. Objective rules, as in the rules of the objective world, are not projected from your mind. They're not predicated on your mind. The rules of the objective world have nothing to do with your perception, apprehension of them, right? Like your perceptual apprehension of them isn't involved, right? The only reason you ever evolved a brain that supported the perception you're using now is because the rules of nature dictated that that's what should happen. It's not
But
because
we
your
don't know
mind
what those
projected
rules
those
are.
rules.
But
I
we
don't
don't
accept
know.
that your mind. Look, I don't accept that your mind retroactively projects the rules that structure it. That is just ridiculous to me.
But our conceptions of the rules are historically sedimented through the past, though.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the rules don't have to be retroactively projected. They can just objectively exist, and we can be, over time, slowly making a more accurate apprehension of them so that we can model them more effectively.
I agree with everything except the idea that they already exist. I just do not
Yeah, but
exist
like,
if
there's
there
no
are objective
reason
rules.
for you to say that.
I don't accept that there are objective rules because I don't have evidence.
Yeah, but
that there
they
are
have to
objective
be.
rules.
Because listen.
There
At the
don't
very
have to be.
least. Yeah, they do.
There
At
is
the
no
very least.
absolute necessity
Dude,
for
listen.
objective
At
rules
the
to
very
exist.
least. At the very least, the objective rule that the subjective, like, perception you have exists has to be true. That rule has to exist. The objective principle of subjectivity has to be true, or subjectivity isn't here. That's a fact.
I believe in intersubjectivity over objectivity.
No, but the thing I'm saying is, unless subjectivity is true, it does not exist.
What does that have to do with objectivity's existence?
Because I'm saying unless subjectivity is objectively true, it does not exist. That's what true means.
I disagree. I do not believe that true means objectively true.
Well, that's wrong. The pragmatic theory of truth is incomplete and inadequate.
But that theory was created by us. You know what I mean?
Yes, but
these
that is
labels
not
are
adequate.
semantic creations by human beings in order to
That's not
construct an
irrelevant,
idea
though.
of objectivity. But
What
that
I'm
doesn't mean that
saying
there is.
No, but what I'm saying is, the pragmatic theory of truth is insufficient to, like, properly analyze truth. I'm telling you that. That's my opinion. That's my experience.
Yes. Therefore, we can't use it as an accurate model.
Yeah, but you are using the pragmatic theory of truth. I'm not. You are. That's why you're saying that what your mind says is true is what's true, and that your mind projects the rules onto the objective world. And you're saying that the objective world doesn't have objective rules, and all of these things
what I'm saying
are
is
suppositions of yours.
I have insufficient information to determine an objective world.
Well, in that case, you have insufficient information to determine that there wouldn't be such a thing.
But there's the null hypothesis in that case.
No, but the point that I'm making is, okay, I'm saying I have reason to suggest X, and you're saying I think X is fundamentally untrue, but you admit to having no evidence.
Well, I'm saying there's no evidence either way because of human
But I'm saying that
limitations.
means you can't say that you're drawing the conclusion it's fundamentally untrue. How do you
Well,
justify that?
I believe there's experiential evidence that can be individualized, but I don't believe there's translatable evidence of the whole.
Okay, so you think it's a something that you can tell is true, but that you can't explain to me that it is true. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, then guess what? I'm going to repeat to you the thing I said before, which is that anybody who tells me that they understand something that is true, but who cannot explain to me what they think they understand, I am going to reply to them that I do not believe that they do adequately understand what they think they do.
So do you believe that all understanding can be translated into words?
All understanding that is sufficient can be translated into words, yes.
So what I'm saying is, in that case, we never have sufficient understanding. And
I don't agree.
also
We have sufficient
fundamentally,
understanding all the time.
I also
That's what
fundamentally
science is.
believe. I also fundamentally disagree with the idea that all sufficiently understood information can be shared through verbal communication, because verbal communication is a human habit.
Okay, but wait a
And we
minute.
don't live in a
Like, let's think
universe
about
that
that.
is centric. Hold on. We don't live in a universe that is centered around human beings. Therefore,
let's think about
verbal
it.
communication as a method to explain is insufficient.
Dude,
That's
listen. I said the word sufficient. I said sufficient, and sufficient is according to my fucking criteria. All right. So I'm saying my criteria for sufficiency is that you can explain what you know to me. Because if you really knew it, why the fuck wouldn't you be able to tell me?
Because words have limitations.
No, I don't accept that. Maybe
Language,
your cognitive,
but there's grammatic, like there's things you can't say in English that you
I
can say in
accept
other
that.
languages.
Listen, I accept that. But also another possibility is that your cognitive apprehension has limitations. And I'm saying if you cannot explain to me in the words you know what you think you mean, maybe you don't really know either. Because how the fuck could you check if you have not been able to put it outside your head?
We've agreed that these are both possibilities, and we disagree.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can't
listen, because there are other forms of communication, and
no, but there's not other forms of verification.
You're saying that truth must be communicable.
Must be what? Sorry.
You're saying truth must be communicable.
No, I'm saying verification is something. Listen. I'm saying verification is something that cannot happen sufficiently inside your own head. Always. You cannot consider any of your opinions to be sufficiently verified if you have not managed to externalize them and have them checked by another reasoning human.
I disagree with that.
You'd be wrong. You are subjective. You're biased. You miss your mistakes.
That's what I'm saying.
No, but you miss your mistakes.
But we all are biased.
No, but you miss your mistakes specifically. You are idiosyncratic in a way which means that your mistakes are unique to you. Mistakes that you make could be mistakes I can see, and you can't see them. That's why you're making them. But if you manage to put it outside of your head, we could both check it and agree that you do not have any mistakes. But since you have not been able to do so, any understanding which has been checked outside of a head is better than an understanding that has not.
What I'm saying is your claim on it being better is a qualifying claim. That alone is a value claim. Like that alone is an opinion. Yes. So at the end of the day, fundamentally,
that's pragmatic.
We do have a disagreement that is opinion.
No, but that's pragmatic. No, it's pragmatically evaluated. I'm saying, like in terms of like a rational model, right? One is like technically worse than the other.
But I'm saying that conceptions of rationality are human made. So
I don't care. I'm saying using
what
the
I'm saying is
human-made ones I know.
Attempting to place my opinions here into a rational model will not fit if they're not rational.
Of course, if they're not rational, but I'm saying irrational things are not sensible.
The totality of his existence does not fit in a rational model. Therefore,
I think what you're saying is it doesn't fit inside your head.
It doesn't. I'm saying it doesn't fit in my conceptions of a rational model.
Yes, but you haven't heard of all the rational models, right? So you can't make that claim.
Neither of us have.
The point is, I'm not making the claim. You just said that reality doesn't fit inside a rational model, but you do not know that.
Your claim that it does implies a full understanding of humanity.
Dude, I'm saying I think it does because I have evidence that it does. Do you have evidence
within
that
its
it doesn't?
own model? You're asking me to
No,
give
listen.
you evidence using the model while you give me.
I'm not. I'm
using
saying,
the model.
admit to me that you cannot have evidence of your position.
Within your model, because your
No,
position is born out
by
of your
your own
model.
admission.
Yes, because I told you I feel like I have evidence that isn't inside of that model. There is.
But I'm saying,
irrational.
dude, I'm saying, according to my standards, I'm the one you have to convince. My standards for sufficient evidence include that the information is not just inside your head. You have to have it checked by me. You can't tell me what's true without giving me the chance to examine your fucking reasoning.
I follow what you're saying completely, and I.
Yeah, so I
have to
don't
say
accept
this.
any claims to truth which aren't supported by the sufficient reasoning.
That's fair. That's 100% fair. What I'm saying is this, and what I should have said earlier is this. This is the frustrating region where the claim of the mystical is born. The people who claim, I have these experiences. You say they are not real because I
No, but
cannot
I've had them
vouch.
too.
No, no. I'm not saying I'm the guy. I'm saying like the realm of the mystical is born in the claim that this is forever inexplicable. It is a belief system. You know what I mean? Like it's a philosophical standpoint that doesn't adhere to traditional rationality. That's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is, as a result, it will remain incompatible in its fundamental view, in the such that I will never convince you and you will never convince me on this fundamental because we hold our beliefs on it.
Look, I'm saying
and I know it's a pain in the ass because like I promise you, like you're making total sense. You are making total sense to me, and I hear you, and I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring your claims, and I can feel the frustration because like you end up having to say the same thing to me over and over because you're right. But at the same time, there is this space of belief. You know what I mean? There is the space of a claim being made by a subjective, possibly flawed human who is saying, I see and feel truths that I cannot share with you, that to you are not truths. But that's why they remain esoteric. That's why they maintain the denotation of mysticism, because they are a mystery to you. You know what I mean?
I definitely know what you're saying.
Even if your iteration of nearly the same experience is translatable to you, if it's not translatable in my eyes, then for me it is a mystical experience. So what I'm saying is these are like opposing forces that it's painful to attempt to reconcile, but our work in doing so is fucking amazing.
Look, I see what you're saying. I think ultimately, though, that I am not close-minded to mystical phenomena. All
I
I'm
don't
asking
think you are.
is that
I don't think you are. Not at all. I would not say that.
yeah, I just feel like I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just saying, as someone who
You are steadfast in your view with evidence. You have built a translatable explanation through your observation of information utilizing an effective framework which you believe to hold some connection to an objective truth of the world, which you have displayed to me. I accept that and simultaneously say there is information missing in your framework that I cannot give you words for outside of the words that relay their denotation as missing, like missing.
Okay. So
as a result, I know that it gives this kind of, it appears to be a kind of pussying out from a logical standpoint, but in terms of overall discussion, you have the ability to see what I'm saying. Therefore, it is in some degree comprehensible as a concept, yet it is not sufficiently backed up. Therefore, within your practice that you have displayed to me, it's not sufficient for you to take it as true. That I understand, I accept, but I also know you can see what I'm saying here.
Okay, so I definitely do see what you're saying, and I think my final comment would probably be that hopefully you think that maybe we can figure out how to collaborate cooperatively to discover the words that we do not currently know how to use that might describe the thing that you're talking about, which I don't believe is beyond the grips of language.
So what I'll say is, even though I do believe it is, we still have to try. You're right. And we will try. And in the same way, I would ask you to do me the favor of attempting to have this communication occur through other forms of communication outside of language. Maybe through two people doing the same trip, or maybe through something. I don't know what it is. I don't know. But we have to make this journey. That much is clear to me.
I definitely agree that part of what's going on here is that we need to help each other understand, because probably none of us do.
My only fear is that you feel that I am a fool through this conversation.
No, I don't feel that you're a fool. I think that you don't agree with me, but I mean, that's fine. Like, maybe we can come to agree.
But I follow you, I respect your positions, and I see with the fundamental beliefs that I believe you have, I see why why your claims make total sense. And I do not want to attribute any falsity to them in any claims of objectivity. I just want to say I believe from my fundamental truths that I hold that this is incorrect. But
that's fair.
Possibly our truths could mutate into a way that allows us to find a middle ground. But
as one,
it's going to take a lot more of this, my friend, and
yeah, of course.
I can't wait.
Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's the way. All right, man. Look, I had a really good discussion. I might hop off for the night, but I hope to see you on here tomorrow, and I hope that you stick around.
Same here, man. I'm here. I'm gonna be here.
Awesome. All right. Have a good night, dude.
Thanks, man. God bless you. Peace out.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and join us in the Nameless Debates Discord. We hope to see you there.